90 to 360 minutes. Our webinars tend to go long. They're usually very, very heavy on content. And they're also very, very interactive. In other words, I love to, the more feedback and interaction you give me, when I ask for feedback, when I ask you for questions, the more participatory you are in tonight's training, the more powerfully your nervous system will become stimulated, and you will gain the knowledge and the skills and the abilities and the experiences that we want you to have to be able to go out into the world and apply this information. And while on the subject of applying this information, I just want to tell you right up front, there's really kind of no theory in what we're going to be sharing with you tonight. We focus on things that do not require you to believe in them for them to be effective. Our focus is always to give you the best, most powerful, most actionable content imaginable so that you can start applying this stuff right away and prove to yourself the value and the worth of what we offer. That being said, we're about to dive into a very, very, very deep end of the pool, 2,500 years worth, not counting modern science to be exact. So if this is the scope of everything that there is to learn in the 3 hours that we're together, we might have time for this much. So my commitment, my promise to you is this: I will teach you as much as I can in the time that we have together. I will take you as far down and into this face reading rabbit hole and all the different places it can lead you and change your life within the time that I have. And I will promise you, I will point you, I will give you a path to continue your journey and level up your skills, to take it further. Is that fair? If you think that's a fair trade, go ahead and type that in the chat. If you don't think it's fair, probably not best use your next 360 minutes. So you might want to go watch the Three Stooges or something, right? Okay. That being said, let me talk about what we're going to be focusing on tonight. So tonight is about what I would like to call 5-element face reading. This is a kind of a callback, or I don't want to say a retcon, but I'm going to go back to my roots in Chinese 5-element energetics, Chinese medical acupuncture, things of that nature. And then I'm going to try and bridge that gap. I was very privileged to learn a classical family lineage of face reading from my teacher, the great Lillian Bridges. And let me just, let's just do this part, because this is part where I always get teary. So let me show you this. So this is my teacher, Lillian. This is a very young Lillian, by the way. This has always been my favorite picture of her. And she passed away in I believe it was 2020, and September, as a matter of fact. And she was the one who introduced me to this amazing world of Chinese 5-element theory. And when I was sitting in her symposium class for the first time, and she stood up in front of at least 400 or 500 people, and proclaimed to the world that if you can read somebody's face and you unpack the emotional baggage that is behind those facial markings, that marking will actually start to fade and go away. And the first thing out of my mouth from the back row of this auditorium was, bullshit! Turns out she was 100% right, and I'll tell you that story later. For those of you who are wondering if this shit's real, how does it work? What you see right next to Lillian's picture is the second page of a textbook on Chinese medicine that is dated over 2,500 years old. This is all on the markings that we're going to be talking about today, the facial characteristics, things of that nature. It was the second page, right? And so it's important to remember that there are teachers out there who don't approach face reading and even the Chinese systems the way that I was taught to approach Chinese face reading. There's some really good other resources that I'm happy to talk about, but most of the people that I know who don't go back to Lillian's lineage are more focused on the divinatory, fortune-telling, astrological, more woo-woo approach to face reading. And there is some credence to that, but Lillian was, even though she knew all about that stuff, her particular family style Their face reading was mostly for legal applications, banking and business, and matchmaking. And her first textbook, which is a required reading for all of my face reading students, is called Face Reading in Chinese Medicine. You can find it on Amazon. Lillian was the world's leading authority on Chinese face reading, and she could literally look at your face and give you a pretty good ballpark of your Myers-Briggs profile. She was that good. She was so good that two intelligence agencies were actively trying to recruit her to teach their system to their operatives, which I don't know that the official story is that she never did. Her father was, in fact, an agent for the CIA for a long time. So what I was told versus what was actually true, well, I'll leave that up to your imagination. But what is possible with face reading? I think a better question is what is not possible with face reading. So here's how we're going to play this game, okay? I'm going to ask you some questions. And if it's something you'd like to be better at or something you'd like to be able to do more of, you just type, yes, that's me in the chat, and we'll jump in. Sound like a plan? This means yes, this means no, but I can't see that in the chat, so type yes if you're with me, not so much if you're not with me. Okay, very good. All right, excellent. So how many people here, by a show of that's me in the chat, would like to make more money? Anybody? Okay, a resounding yes. Well, let me tell you, if you become a certified face reader and you're competent, it's not uncommon for people to get anywhere from $350 to $750 a session just to read somebody's face, much less help them fix that stuff that they find. And the reason I say fix that stuff that they find is because Lillian's approach was always about diagnosis, how to look at somebody's face. And I can look at your face, and any of Lillian's students who paid attention can look at your face and literally tell you how your spleen is doing, how your heart is doing, your lungs are doing, what your constitution is like. They can tell a lot of times when your siblings were born. They can tell when you've had traumas. It's amazing what you can do. But the biggest application that we started with was people for Chinese medical diagnosis. In other words, someone's coming to me for chronic pain, cancer, multiple sclerosis, some kind of long-term chronic illness. Can we, in fact, look at the face and actually diagnose the face from a Chinese medical perspective using that? And that's where we start in our approach to face reading. It's all things that we can verify and prove. The further you get out into the wonderful world of Wu, the more subjective and suggestible things become. So if you are working in any form of healing profession, and I don't care if you're a body worker, I don't care if you're an acupuncturist or a Qigong practitioner, I don't care if you're a psychotherapist, social worker, there is no place where the elements that we're going to be sharing with you throughout this webinar and our full curriculums will not give you more insight and more ability to make a profound difference, and in many cases, to measure the differences that you're making with your clients. Okay, if you're someone who's more interested in social applications, if you want to be the most fascinating person at a party, there is nothing that will do it faster than being a face reader. Okay, if you're tired of dating the same person with a different face every time, those markings will become very, very obvious to you, and you can avoid the wrong people and find the right people. So there's a lot of different ways. Like I said, I was a big proponent for many years of graphoanalysis. I studied with Bart Baggett. I used it all the time, everywhere, and it was amazing. And I'm still a big fan of it. But when I learned face reading, it was a game changer because fewer and fewer people write anymore, but everybody still has a face, right? And even if you're wearing a mask, I can still tell an awful lot about you from above the mask to get a really good profile. And while we're on the subject of profiling, and because that's what this class is really kind of about, it's about being able to look at somebody and through pattern recognition, understand what that person's life is like or what kind of a life they're leading. And we can look at the face in different layers and we can look at it in different levels. Today, I'm going to try and pick up a little bit of where we left off yesterday. Or not yesterday, but 2 weeks ago when I started teaching you the decision-making processes and the maps of the face. But I also want to go into more of the classical stuff. But these will still be things that you as a business person, a social person, can begin to apply. And it's going to be more along the lines of elements. So before we go any further, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. So how many people would like to enjoy better relationships? Yes or yes? Okay. Stay on tonight's webinar till the end. Okay. How many of you would like to improve their mental state, their mental health, their mindset, their motivation, get rid of the crap that they don't even know they've got that's just driving your bus and pushing your buttons? Stay on for tonight's webinar because you're going to get a lot of insight into how to begin that process. How would you like to be able to protect yourself against the evil persuasion predators of the world, manipulators, con artists, charlatans, human traffickers, narcissists, sociopaths, domestic abusers, all that crap? All right, then you're going to want to stay on tonight. And like I talked about before, how many of you just want to be able to help others and heal people and help people reach their goals faster? Would that be something you're all interested in? Okay. So before I go on, is there anything I didn't mention that you would like to be able to do as a byproduct from tonight's training or byproduct from tonight's webinar? Type it in the chat. If there's something I missed, lose weight? Actually, yeah, we could probably do that. We can probably show you how to do that. Remove lines off people's faces, okay? You're going to actually learn how to do that as a byproduct of the training, but we'll talk about it. Can we diagnose any disease? That's a great question, Carol. And the truth is that you can diagnose, but the way that diagnosis works is it's based on, heal a dent in the forehead. Okay, we can talk about that. Be able to look at myself and read. Yes. In fact, I do that every morning. When I get up in the morning, I try to avoid the first 10 or 15 minutes because you're dehydrated or you're puffy and you're full of sleep. But after about 20, 30 minutes and your body starts to kind of balance itself out, then you can go and you can look at your face and you can diagnose your own system from a day-to-day basis. It's really, really interesting. Can you use the subconscious or use the subconscious to heal back pain? Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, back pain will often show up on the bridge of the nose. It's really cool. Like everything is interconnected. Okay. Now, again, you guys are asking some really deep questions, and I will try to work those into the next webinar as possible. But hopefully, as I go through this process, you'll be able to extrapolate how that would work. If not, we have a training opportunity coming up mid-month, I think it is, towards the end of April, that will make everything really, really direct and straightforward for you. All right. So I'm glad. I love the amount of feedback we're getting in the chats. That is absolutely awesome. Let me go look at my YouTubers here really quick. Okay. So I missed it earlier. So just for the sake of the new people, who is David Snyder? Why should I care? So we're just going to go through this really, really quick. So I told you my lineage with Lillian Bridges, all right? I am, in fact, a doctor of acupuncture and Oriental medicine. This is a copy of my degree from Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. I've had an active practice since 2005 here in Solana Beach, where my primary focus is treating physiological illness that's caused by repressed emotion. And what happened is I very, very quickly realized that I could fix most things faster with hypnosis, NLP, and Chinese psychoenergetics than I could with needles. And so that became the focus of my practice. Face reading, when I finally learned it, became a huge, huge diagnostic assist beyond the basic face reading I had learned in medical school. So I'm also one of the top 2 NLP trainers in the world, as per globalgurus.org. This is a copy of 2020 when I was ranked the #1. I actually beat all the founders out. I still keep this one just to remind myself that I'm probably the only guy that ever actually managed to pull that off. And I have not pulled it off again, but I have been in the top 2 slot for the last 8 to 10 years. So I'm excited about that. I've authored over 15 different products on various forms of human influence. This is a copy of a letter I got from Global Gurus where one of my programs, actually 2 technically, Killer Influence, Secrets of Covert Hypnosis, was ranked the #1 NLP training program in the world since 2020, actually, up to even this year. And so I'm very proud of that because we never promoted this class as an NLP class. And the second version of it was also ranked #1. And that was called Defense Against the Dark Arts, which uses a lot of face reading and profiling stuff in it. So, and this is, of course, a copy of our page at Global Gurus. I'm not gonna bore you with these details, but here's what we're going to be talking about today. From a Chinese five element perspective, I want to talk about how to understand personality and temperament. I want to teach you how to track and understand trauma history, not to a great degree. That was mostly last week's webinar, but I want to kind of close that loop for you. I want to teach you how to look for and gauge sexual and romantic compatibility, but I don't want to just show you about sexual and romantic compatibility. I also want to teach you some things that Lillian taught me about business compatibility. We're going to talk about the five element management styles. We're going to talk about five element lifestyles, five element physiology and physiognomy. So you can start to kind of look at people and begin to ballpark. Okay, is that a fire person? Is that a predominantly fire person, predominantly metal person, predominantly earth or water person? And what are they most, and because of that primary physiognomy, what exactly is that person going to trend towards? And that's what I want you to think about. When I was learning the five element system, I'll talk to you about that. Remind me to close that loop. Melissa says, I've been absent since 1997. That's okay. Welcome back. We're going to teach you how to become a master of people reading and human influence. And while we're on that subject, let's go back to the word I mentioned earlier called profiling. So when we look, if you can Google, you can just type in personality profiles or personality tests, and you will have page after page after page after page of different tests people can take. Myers-Briggs, the four temperaments, there's the Enneagram, and all these other different personality types. And those are all designed to help you do something. Core, yeah. They're all designed to help you do something, create a profile of a person based on a template. And the Chinese were no different, or the Asian systems were no different. And this isn't, and by the way, this is for any face reading system. It doesn't really matter if it's Chinese, Korean, Malaysian, Italian, Native American. There's many Vedic. There's lots of different face reading systems. So one of the things I'm going to recommend, because I know that people who study with me don't just study with me, when you start to study other resources and other sources for your face reading, don't look for what's different. Look for where everyone agrees. Start there and use that to create your core lexicon, your core key, master key of behavioral traits. Because once again, we're going to be sorting by populations. We're going to be sorting by what's most common. From that, you can start to experiment with the things that are slightly different from system to system to system. So we're going to focus tonight for you on things that are pretty true no matter where you go. And you can take those to the bank, you can take those to the bedroom, you can take those wherever you want to go. And that's my goal. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of put that out there. But one of the things that people often ask, and I just want to put this out there so you guys have an understanding. When we talk about profiling, I divide profiling methodologies into two kinds of profiling. One is called active profiling, and the other is called passive profiling. So what does that actually mean? So if we look at how many people here have ever heard of somebody by the name of Paul Ekman? Anybody? If you've heard of Paul Ekman, go ahead and type that in the chat. Perfect. All right. So Paul Ekman. Some of you may have heard of a guy by the name of Chase Hughes. Yes? Yes or yes, as they say, right? You may have heard of a guy named Joe Navarro, or Mark Bowden, or, I mean, you can name 100 different body language people out there, right? And they're all going to be what I call active profilers. What does that mean? Active profiling is the ability to monitor what a person's regular baseline is and calibrate when they deviate from what they normally do. So if you're looking at Dr. Ekman's work, he is going to talk about micro expressions. These are emotional processes you're running in the moment that manifest for a fraction of a second on the face. Chase is going to talk to you about things like general hemispheric tendency, or IHOME, or things of that nature. And I'm a high-ranking member in Chase's organization, so I have tremendous respect for the ABR community and everything else. But that is what we call active profiling. Joe Navarro, lie detection, that kind of stuff. What are they doing? They're creating a profile of that person, of what they're normally like, and then they're calibrating change. It's a very dynamic, active process. And there's a place for that. But what they don't have is they don't know who this person is. They don't have an idea of their gender without a lot of profiling. They don't have an ability to kind of get a snapshot of how this person lives their life, if that makes any kind of sense. So what we're going to be talking about from the Chinese face reading perspective are things they've been doing for years that have, with their face and sometimes with their body, types of experiences that they've had, categories of experiences that they've had, and how those markings, those patterns that they've gone through and either not managed or failed to manage well, have impacted and marked their face. So if you can think of the difference between active profiling and passive profiling, active profiling, we're looking at micro expressions, we're looking at things they're doing in the moment. Chinese face reading is a combination of their constitution and lifestyle, but the consequence of a lifetime of micro expressions. So when we start to unpack a person's face, we can start to create generalizations that are most likely true based on these patterns. And everything that we learn in Planet David is all about pattern recognition. And when we talk about pattern recognition, that's everything. Once you understand how to see a person's patterns and hear a person's patterns, not only are you able to predict with a very high degree of accuracy what that behavior is going to manifest as, given the context and situation, you also now have the tools to interrupt and modify that pattern based on your understanding. So I know I'm getting a little lectury here, but I just want to I want to put that out there that they're not the same, but they're really useful together. They're really, really useful together. Does that make sense? Are you guys with me on this? Excellent. Okay, very good. So how many of you, by show of hands, really quick, were on the last webinar, the last face reading webinar? Just type in me if you were here, and if it's your first time, just type in first time. Okay. Okay, Willow's first time, Lacey first time, Melody. Excellent. Okay, so a lot of first timers. All right. So here's what we're going to do then. If it's okay with you, I am going to do a brain dump on you as much as humanly possible. I'm going to go really quick for the first half of the first facial map that I'm going to show you. We aren't going to do decisions, and we're not going to do public side and private side. You can go back to the webinar we did on March 13th, I think, or March 11th, and pick those up there. And I highly recommend that you do. If when you come to face reading at the end of April, then of course you'll get a deep dive into this stuff, right? Please, please, please review this webinar. I'm going to give you a crap ton of really powerful information. Okay. Todar says Joe Navarro is a real expert, although the books of him are a bit, yeah. Well, the thing you got to understand about anything that's coming from the military and law enforcement context is going to be hyper academic. It'll be scientifically valid in most cases, but it's not going to be the most exciting way to assimilate this information. The other challenge with that approach to learning is there's so much data. Most people don't need a body language dictionary that spans 400 pages. They just need to be able to have a few basic rules of thumb that you apply and be able to best guesstimate what that behavior most likely means based on those principles that are fairly immutable. Okay, so that being said, let's you guys want to jump in? You guys want to? All right, so let me ask you a question. I'm going to give you guys a choice because I'm going to do both no matter what, but I want to know which one. I'm going to teach as much content as humanly possible for about the next 30 some minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, we're going to go into phase 2 of our webinar, which is where I show you the paths of ascension, the ways to level up your skills. We put some programs and some packages together because I asked you if I could show you the way to go next, you'd be willing to go. Is that true or not true? You guys remember I asked you that? Okay, so we're gonna go as much as we can in the next 30 minutes. We're gonna go through phase 2 of the webinar, then we're gonna go right into phase 3. Phase 3 of our webinar is accelerated and customized learning phase. What does that mean? That means that we're gonna drill down on even more information. We're not just gonna leave, make an offer and then disappear. We're gonna actually make the offer, let you guys take advantage of it, and come back and continue to teach you. We're gonna teach you more and more stuff, and we're gonna try and customize the content that we're teaching to give you the biggest bang for your buck. All right. So if that's fair, then let's go ahead and look at the emotions of the face. Let me share screen. And if for some mysterious reason we should have all kinds of technical snafus like we did last time, just bear with me because I've got like 6 different cameras running, or not cameras, laptops. One of them will work. So last class, we talked about the first half of this particular diagram, right? So we talked about skepticism, we talked about joy, we talked about sadness, sorrow, lost love lines, grief, right? Humor, bitterness, and we did talk about fear. Now my pen is working, so I'm actually going to talk about, I'm going to revisit fear. When you guys know what an orange peel looks like? You know how they have the little dimples? When you see somebody who's got a lot of repressed fear, you won't usually see lines like this. This is not, and this is what Lillian taught us in the actual class. It's done by little lines here, but in actuality, what you see when you're dealing with someone who's got a lot of repressed fear are what look like the little dip. Let me do this a little bigger. You've got little dimples, like on an orange peel, right? And if you see these little dimples in and around the chin when they're not making a face, when the face is relaxed, this is someone who's been holding on to a lot of repressed fear, okay? Last class, I also talked a lot about these 3 traits. This is bitterness. I'm sorry, this is over-nurturing. This is disappointment. And this is bitterness. Now, each of these can appear on the face by themselves, but when they show up together, that's when things can get a little dicey. And here's what I mean. People who have these over-nurturing lines, they tend to have grown up, either intentionally or by default, believing that if they just keep giving to the world, that the world will give back in kind. Okay, and what happens is they keep giving and they keep giving and they keep giving. Now, sometimes they're caregivers and they're home health aides, or they have a parent or a spouse who has a lot of health issues, and they're just giving and giving and giving. But a lot of times with these particular markings, which are often related to the large intestine, by the way, those markings indicate somebody who has been giving of themselves over and over and over again, waiting to get back, and has not been receiving to the degree that they're giving from their perspective and from their body's perspective. And so what happens is, after a certain amount of time, these people will start to experience a growing level of disappointment. Now, disappointment can be seen by a wrinkle traveling from the corner of the mouth down through towards the lower lip. Now, I have to go back on this one a little bit and clarify. There's a difference in face reading. Let me put a smaller line here. There is a difference between a downturned mouth and a disappointment wrinkle. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys aren't seeing. I'm sorry. My bad. All right. Let me do this again. All right. So once again, let me erase and do this again. So in face reading, we have 2 different traits that can manifest at the corner of the mouth. You have disappointment. You have disappointment, which can be seen by a wrinkle that travels from the edge of the mouth downward. But sometimes the person won't have a wrinkle. They'll just have a mouth that's just kind of has a downturn to it. This is somebody who is a bit more on the pessimistic side. They're more on the half empty versus half full side of life. So they're not the same trait, but I've seen face readers often confuse one for the other. So when you look at a person's, just on a little funny note, sometimes you'll see these disappointment lines on people who have children who just continually don't do what the parents want them to do. I have these because my children are constantly finding ways to circumvent my rules and disappointing me. So I have these all the time, right? But again, when you see that line traveling down from the corner of the mouth, this is someone who's experienced a lot of disappointment in their life. And it's not disappointment that they're expressing. That's the thing we need to understand. When we look at these lines on the face, these are not things people are expressing. These are things people are stuffing, denying, regressing, or repressing down. So for 18 plus years of working with repressed emotion, nobody ever came to me because of something they were expressing, ever. No chronic illness I've ever worked with was because somebody was getting rid of shit, right? So Denise is asking there, sometimes, are they different on the right left? Yes, we covered that in the last webinar, but I'll just put it out there really quick so you guys can take notes. The right side, so raise your right hand, touch the right side of your face and say public. Right side of your hands, or right hand, right side of your face, say public. Take the left side of your hand, or your left hand, touch it to the left side of your face, say private, or personal, or intimate. So public, private. So when you look at these lines, any of the lines I'm showing you right now, the first thing you want to start to gauge, are the lines symmetrical? What does that mean? Well, if I look at the right side disappointment line versus the left side disappointment line, are they the same depth? Are they the same length? Right? The more symmetrical they are, the more pervasive that particular set of emotions is. The more depth and length a particular emotion has on one, it tells you where the majority of that is being experienced. So if I have someone who has a very strong public face, but a very strong disappointment marking here, it's a pretty safe bet that something in their professional life or their external world, where they relate to the public, is not as satisfying as what's going on when they get home. And you can flip the script on that. So remember, right is public, left is private. We're looking at depth and length. Okay. Lacey's asking how to differentiate between lines from physical injury, scars, accidents, and natural facial characteristics. Scars are pretty easy to tell. They have a different kind of tissue to them, but most of the markings, with the exception of moles to a certain degree, and you have to look at moles a little bit differently, most of those will be either extra jing or they will be some kind of energy blockage. So if you've got, let's see, what's a good one? Like a mole up here is usually good luck. But sometimes if you've got a mole like on the tip of your nose where you have the river of life flowing, that can actually work as an energy block. So it's interesting that, this isn't a class on Jing, which we'll talk a lot more in Chinese 5-element face reading. But anything that deviates or cuts through or blocks a flow can have significant impacts on your behaviors and manifestations. Okay. That was a very deep question, Lacey, and I want to go deeper into that, but it's not the focus of where we're going tonight. Melissa's asking, what about health nuts? People take lots of supplements that heal the skin and use sunblock protection. Okay, so the environment will absolutely impact your face, but what you'll notice is that the obvious signs of aging are actually, most of the time, and this is something that my wife and I came to clinically, and then Lillian confirmed it from a Chinese face reading perspective. Most of the markings that people manifest or believe are aging are actually signs of emotional toxicity. I've literally seen pictures of people who, when they first started training with Lillian, looked like they were 40 or 50 years old. And when I've met these people in their 60s or 70s, all those lines are gone. And they've had no plastic surgery of any kind. All they've done is the emotional clearing work that comes from learning to do this face. It's amazing how I've seen people, again, I can't talk about supplements and things of that nature. I'm talking to you strictly, purely about what happens when you start to clear the emotional toxicity that's imprinted on the face. I've literally had clients who started the session with no eyebrow bone, like nothing. And then all of a sudden we resolve all the limiters to why they've been holding themselves back, why they've been feeling repressed, and boom, instant Frankenbrow, 90 minutes, done, right? There's all kinds of other factors, but what I've seen over and over again is that when you start to unpack the markings and the wrinkles in the face, when you find the emotional toxicity that these are indicators of, those markings fade. Okay. And I've seen scars fade too. Okay. Yes, something like that. The scars can affect you. Yes, absolutely. And I could play what if questions all day long. That is not where we need to go. But I'll tell you what, type those questions in the comment section of the chat, and I'll point you to the relevant texts and things of that nature. Okay, so are we clear on these over nurturing lines? These are actually, by the way, don't be surprised many times when you see these markings. A lot of times, if they have some kind of intestinal issue going on, IBS, Crohn's disease, celiac, irritable, yeah, I said irritable bowel, things of that nature. Okay. Disappointment lines. The next line I want to talk about are bitterness lines. And these are really important. People were asking about smoking. Most people turn to smoking as a way to resolve stress and feel comfortable. Why are they feeling uncomfortable? Usually because they're tired, they're stressed out, and they're very, very upset. And so what can happen is if you see disappointment, over nurturing, disappointment, and then these lines start to show up, we need to really, in my opinion, again, you will avoid taking this as any form of diagnosis or prediction of any kind. But when I see these three traits showing up together, to me, that's almost always a recipe for some kind of chronic terminal illness, usually cancer. Because what happens a lot of times is the over nurturing continues and continues, and it doesn't get better. And they see people just getting away with not giving back, and it builds up inside of them. The disappointment mounts, and that turns into bitterness. And then from bitterness, they actually tend to lapse into hopelessness. And so the body starts looking for a way out. And if the person can't find a way to resolve those feelings, which if they're marking like this, these are things they're not expressing. They're not being proactive to deal with the lifestyle situations and circumstances that are causing this. Okay. At some point, the body's going to start looking for an exit strategy. And usually that's when it'll manifest some kind of terminal or chronic illness. So when I see these markings, the over nurturing, the disappointment, and the bitterness, I'm like, we got to get this guy, we got to get this man or woman, we got to get them clean. We got to get them venting and purging. And when we do that right, those markings start to fade. But the problem is, as a therapist, is, there's only so much that we can do, because if they're going back to the same exact environment that caused these problems in the first place, you may be playing volleyball between the treatment room and the environment. So you got to watch out for that. Okay. You have to be careful of scope of practice, but that's actually one of the reasons why being a face reader can be helpful rather than being a doctor, because you can give people, sometimes people ask for advice and you can tell them, look, this is the environment you're in. You need to marionette line. I think you mean marionette lines, energy healing esthetician. Marionette lines, as I always taught them, there's actually two versions. There's the ones that come down from the nose, and there's ones that come down to the chin. I'll talk about both of those. These are called, we'll get to those in a minute. You have to recommend that they find a way to change that environment, or give them the tools and the resources. If you're a hypnotist, this is really important. Give them the tools and resources they need to be able to express what they want and need safely, right? Remember, your job as a therapist is to build the client up and give them the tools, but they have to use them. And that's kind of the sad part sometimes, is you get somebody who they're just coming to get a house cleaning, but they're not willing to actually behaviorally change the things that are causing this. And so you're sometimes it's stalemating it at best, but the universe usually finds a way to shake things up. So has this been helpful? Has this been useful? This means yes, this means no. Cool. Okay. All right, let's go back to our facial map, because again, I want to get through this as much as I can so I can start on the elemental work as soon as we get back from part 2. All right. So let me go to my draw, clear these out. And for those of you who want this map, I do not own the rights to this map. This is actually, if I'm not mistaken, from Lillian's book, Face Reading in Chinese Medicine. So I highly recommend that you grab a copy of that book if you want to continue at least studying face reading with me, because that is a required text on top of all of our manuals. Okay, so we've got fear. We've got disappointment. We've got bitterness. Next one I want to talk about is purpose. And this was the one, one of our YouTubers, I think they meant to say marionette lines, but but what she meant was marionette lines. Now there are two lines, or two sets of lines, that we learn about. One is on the map here, the other's not. So this one, when you see lines that extend from the side of the nose, the ala nasi, as they call it, and extend down, these are called purpose lines. And of the face lines that we want, this is one of the ones that's the most desirable, right? This line shows somebody who is living their dream. They're living their mission. They're moving, their life is moving in a direction that is in harmony with what we call your golden path. Okay, so these are lines that are actually very, very auspicious. And the Chinese will often say that if you hit your 50s and you don't have these lines, you're missing the boat. Something's up. You're off track. You're off course. You need to change that. Now, what will happen sometimes is these lines will get super long, almost like a Fu Manchu kind of a mustache, right? But sometimes a different kind of line will manifest. And that line looks like this. It'll be here, and it'll kind of circle the chin. And believe it or not, these lines are related to fear. And the teachings I had from Lillian were that they relate most strongly to fear of death. So if you see someone with these lines that kind of circle the chin, this is someone who's probably, when nobody's looking or nobody's paying attention, is thinking about the future in a not so pleasant way. Or they may have a lot of health concerns, or maybe dealing with, they may have parents or siblings or people close to them going through health stuff, and it's caused them to really kind of contemplate their own mortality. So yeah, so let's be very, let's make a very clear distinction. This means you're on track. This means you're afraid you're running out of time for whatever reason. Okay. We good with that? As we would say down south, are we good with that? Okay, excellent. Okay, the next line I want to talk about is an interesting line. I'm actually going to change pictures for this really quickly. We're going to talk about auditory intuition, blood pressure irregularities, pain lines, but the first two are going to be important. So one of the things that, if you looked at that picture, and I actually have these, so I'm pretty well versed in this. If you have lines, like little wrinkles, almost like gills, that appear in front of the ear, kind of like this. Sometimes they're a little bit higher, but usually they're just right in this zone right here. This is what we call auditory intuition lines. And what's interesting about auditory intuition is this particular marking starts out as a sign of trauma. Okay, people who have this marking, when they were growing up, they were growing up in a household that wasn't always safe, and they had to pay particular attention to what people were saying, but not just what they were saying, how they were saying it. It was a verbally, linguistically dangerous environment, and so people began to be able to they started to listen to the tone, the timbre, things like that, and they could tell just by how this person said hello, good mood, bad mood, super anal retentive, not anal retentive, easygoing, you name it, right? And one of the reasons that they developed this was because they had to know how to be able to communicate based on what they interpreted from people's voice tones. And so and Lillian would talk about, Lillian was married many times, which is kind of interesting. But she said she could tell just what kind of day she was going to have by the way her husband closed the car door when he got home from work every day. Right? I know in a nanosecond what my day is going to be like the moment my wife says good morning or calls me on the phone, because I have these lines. If you read my bio and I talk about early times when I grew up, I spent a lot of time being manipulated, lied to, bullied. I never felt safe growing up, ever. And I developed these lines in spades. Now, what's cool about that is that what often starts as a protection device early in life becomes a superpower later on. These people have amazing bullshit detectors. They can tell very, very consistently who's full of shit and who isn't. So these people make good lawyers, good therapists, mediators. They might even make good spies if you think about it like that, right? So this is a really interesting line. Now, remember that everything that we were talking about in Chinese medicine has an energetic aspect to it. It has an emotional aspect to it, a behavioral aspect, but it also has a physiological aspect to it. And that's where this gets really, really interesting. Okay, for me, it was important for me anyway. This may be important for some of you. When you have someone with these markings rest on an acupuncture meridian known as the triple warmer meridian. Now, the triple warmer meridian, part of its job is water metabolism. Okay, and so many times people who develop these lines have a tendency towards dehydration. If they're aware of that, they're always drinking. Right? Now that's generally not the problem. The problem is if you drink a lot, you pee a lot. You follow me? You drink a lot, you pee a lot. It's kind of how it works, right? And so what happens is, because they keep drinking and drinking and drinking, they almost always forget to replenish their minerals, their electrolytes. And when you start to run low on electrolytes, then you get all kinds of weird things like, rapid heartbeat, tachycardia. And people often confuse that rapid heartbeat with anxiety or panic attacks. So if you have these markings and you've noticed from time to time, you suddenly get this rapid heartbeat out of nowhere. First of all, always see a doctor. And I'm not diagnosing you in anything, but take some electrolytes and see, specifically magnesium and potassium and things of that nature, for a few weeks, and notice if the frequency of those rapid heartbeats diminishes and goes away. Because I've noticed when I'm low on electrolytes for any long period of time, it starts to come back, and it reminds me to hydrate properly. Right. So remember that this is a really good skill set that you develop. It's a faculty that turns on, but because of how it turns on and where it turns on, it has physiological ramifications. So if you are one of those people who has rapid heartbeat and you have these markings, first thing, make it simple. Just start supplementing with good, healthy electrolytes under your doctor's supervision and see what happens. Okay. The next one I want to talk about is also on the ears. And this one you'll see a lot of times has little wrinkles, and I have these too, by the way, so I'm kind of throwing myself under the bus. So you'll see sometimes little tiny wrinkles right in the lobe of the ear. And by the way, this particular cue is also found in Western medicine. I think they call it the cardiac notch or something like that. But this, when you see these little wrinkles in the tips of the ear, you're looking at somebody who is prone to blood pressure issues. Blood pressure, and specifically blood pressure irregularities. So sometimes it's too high, sometimes it's too low. Lots of variability. So you think of it more like, instead of having high blood pressure, just very erratic blood pressure. Now, what's interesting behaviorally about this particular trait, when you see it, is these people have an exaggerated response to shock. An exaggerated response to shock. So what do I mean by that? All right. So how many people here have ever been like walking out of a door, walking down a hallway, and somebody just comes out of nowhere and scares the living snot out of you? Anybody ever had that experience? Okay. So let's say you're walking down the hallway, someone comes out, and the normal average human shock response is about a 6 or 7, right? Someone with these kind of markings, it might jump to a 9 or 10. They might be on the verge of passing out for a split second because of the exaggeration of it. Okay, so these people have if somebody insults them or cuts them off in traffic, they're going to tend to take it a little harder than somebody who doesn't have these markings. Okay, so if you're like me and you have these markings, spend a lot more time meditating and cleaning up your crap, so and learn how to train yourself through state control to become less and less reactant to external stimuli. Okay. Useful, yes or yes? All right, let's go back to emotions. All right. So next piece. So we've talked about auditory intuition. We've talked about blood pressure irregularities. One of the ones I want you to be on the lookout for, looks like we're starting to get a little funky with the okay, there we go. When you see lines that start from the outer canthus, the corner of the eye is known as the canthi. So you have an inner canthi or canthus, and you have an outer canthus. When you have a line that runs diagonally from the outer canthus of the eye moving towards the bridge of the nose, this is a pain line. Now, this is especially important if the person isn't in any obvious physical pain. If they're not in any obvious physical pain and they're manifesting these lines, then chances are they have a lot of internal, sometimes usually emotional pain that they're actively suppressing. They've suppressed it, they've locked it down in some way, and it's got to come out. What you'll see sometimes, and this goes back to some of the things I taught last class. Remember that we talked about lost love lines, right? Lost love lines start at the inner canthus here, and they track down through the lung area of the face. Sometimes they'll come across and then come down. If these lines are meeting, then this is somebody this is probably a good indication of something that was an activity or a relationship that they lost, and they're still feeling the pain of it. They're feeling the agony of it. So let's make a clarification. When you see a line, again, this is David extrapolating. You probably won't find this in any of Lillian's books, but this is somebody who's grieving. You understand the difference? This person is mourning. This person's suffering. This person is still feeling the loss. They're still feeling the actual pain that went with that. Might have been rejection, might have been shame, might have been embarrassment, might have been the memory of a physical assault, right? I don't see these as often outside of people suffering with current physical pain. So when you see these lines, I always ask, you have any kind of injury that you're working with or working through right now? Right. And a lot of times they'll say no, or say yes. The next line I want to look at is, I just talked about lost love lines here. And I just talked about there's sadness lines here. The corner of the eye, you have lines that go up, and these are joy lines. And they're only designated as joy lines until they reach the eyebrow. When they go past the eyebrow, you are now going into what we call pathological joy. Pathological joy is often referred to in Western terms as mania or hyperactivity. Okay. In fact, we're going to probably talk, and this is related to an imbalance in the fire element. So either they've got too much fire or not enough coolant. In other words, it's an imbalance between fire and water in the body, where there's not enough water to keep the fire under control, and they go manic or hyper or depressive, versus somebody who's got just way too much fire for the system, and they're just going to be super, super creative, erratic. A lot of times they're very megalomaniacal. But anytime you see a line that's traveling up past that eyebrow, you're not just dealing with someone who's going to be the life of the party. They're going to probably be extremely sensation-seeking. They're going to be, in many cases, confrontational. They're basically dopamine junkies, and so they're looking for anything that's going to give them a rush. Right? These people will stay up for days and weeks at a time, be up at 3 a.m. on Twitter, giving comments about people and stuff like that. So there are some very good examples out there of people who exhibit this kind of behavior. The next line we're going to talk about is a transformation line. And this is one of the really interesting lines. I see this on a fairly regular basis from time to time. And this is a line that travels from the, it could be anywhere on the forehead, but most of the time it's in this area, right around the third eye level. And these often manifest as diagonal lines that come up and out. And you see this line in a lot of people who are high-level meditators, who lead a very deeply spiritual life or have had some kind of spiritual revelation in their life. These are people who've gone through some kind of long, deep, dark night of the soul. And as a byproduct of that, when they came out on the other side, they had some kind of a revelation or an epiphany that changed them on a spiritual level permanently. And when those when those revelations manifest, they will often manifest as these almost diagonal, almost like the rays of the sun when it's rising, right? Now, on super high level meditators, super high spiritual people, you'll see a slightly different marking. And this one is called Buddha wings. And Lillian, in fact, when she was alive, would talk about when she met and watched the Dalai Lama preach, or Lama Mingmar was one of her teachers. And so a Buddha wing looks like a wing. If you can see the third eye, and it comes up and it kind of flows out like this, right? And it looks like a wing. She said she once saw the Dalai Lama before he went on stage, watched him while he was on stage, and then watched him after. And he said before the Dalai Lama went on, he had transformation lines, but he didn't have very pronounced Buddha wings. But when he started to preach and he started to teach and he started to channel his Buddha nature into the room, these lines just started to show up on his third eye, right? And then when he stopped teaching and he went back to just being the head of the Tibetan system or whatever it was, these kind of faded a bit. So I have seen these from time to time. I have seen all kinds of very weird markings on people's faces. Some I could explain, others not so much. So I'm always searching, I'm always learning. Denise says those lines show a flirty person too. I've never seen those lines on a flirty person. What I have seen a lot on flirty people are raised eyebrows. They're not the same. Okay, so for example, I don't know if you guys can see me here. One of the things you'll learn in profiling class, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Killer Influence, is something called the positive eye contact body language cluster, and it's positive eye contact, measurable eyebrow flash, and Duchenne wrinkles by the temples. That's how you know someone generally wants to see you and is projecting safety. So a lot of flirtatious people will do a lot of this. They'll have a lot of eyebrow movement, right? But that's not a Buddha wing. A Buddha wing is actually a wrinkle that manifests. So I haven't seen the Buddha wing marking show up in a lot of flirty people, unless they're very flirty spiritual people. You know, if they're flirting with God or something, I don't know. But so I would have to say I'm not sure I can support that particular statement, Denise. But you know, send me pictures and I'll take a look. Let's see. So are we good so far? Just useful? No, Willow's good. Barbara's good. Edie's good. Okay. Okay. Useful AF. Love that. I love people who drop the bombs, baby. Yeah. All right. Let's finish this up so we can get to part 2. So we can go through that and get to part 3. All righty. All right. So the next set of lines that I want to share with you, these are not symmetrical. Everything I've shown you, let me move some of these windows over. Everything I've shown you so far can happen on any side of the face. I can have joy lines here. I can also have joy lines here. I can have mania lines here. I can have mania lines here. So everything I've shown you on the outside of the clock face is symmetrical. It can show up on either side. The next ones that we're going to look at primarily, well, they only manifest down what we call the river of life. The river of life is this central channel that passes pretty much straight down the face. And you could say it goes as wide as the bridge of the nose. We call this your river of life. You'll learn more about this in Chi class coming up in April. So the first markings we want to look at, and these are really important because I see them a lot. When you see somebody who has a double line, a double set of wrinkles in here, okay, this is someone currently experiencing or habitually experiencing irritation, annoyance, or impatience, okay? Or simply D, all of the above. These people just want you to get to the freaking point most of the time. They're always in a rush. They're not, on first glance at least, they're not going to be someone who's going to seem to want to sit still and let you tell a long story. But if you tell a good story, you can suck them in anyway. So for those of you who are influence trainees, don't let that stop you. As long as the things are relevant to them, they will absolutely pay attention. But these people do want you to get to the point relatively quick. They tend to be stepping on the gas when the light's turning yellow, those kinds of things. Okay. Now, what you'll see sometimes in some people is you'll see 3 lines. And these are people who've actually learned to manage their impatience. These people actually figured out how to actually not let it run their lives. Okay. Now, one of the big ones you got to watch out for, we got to make this a little bit bigger, is a single line. Now, this single line can be very thin, or it can be very thick. I've seen them all. But when you see this line, I promise you, this is somebody who's got some serious anger issues towards a sibling, well, actually towards a father, or a father towards a son. And this particular trait often manifests as self-sabotage, need for approval, can often be passive aggressive, and they tend to have a failure to launch. So let me explain this from an experiential perspective. When people have this marking, and we're going to learn this actually in part 3, this part of your face is related to the wood element of the body. The wood element relates to, hold on, let me get this out. The wood element relates to the liver and the gallbladder. So anger is one of the pathological traits of the liver. Resentment is one of the pathological traits of the gallbladder. In fact, the gallbladder is kind of like the scorekeeper of the body. Now, the other thing you need to understand is that there's also beneficial energies connected to these organs and these elements as well. So the passion and compassion are also connected to the liver. Any form of energy of achievement, achievement and boundaries, is affiliated with the wood element. When you see a line on somebody, and I don't care if it's a big thick line like you see here, or if it's a super tiny needle line like that, when you see these lines, what you're seeing is somebody who at some point early in their life, they expressed their anger and just let it out. And when they did that, they were so badly punished for letting it out that they made it an unconscious decision. It's probably conscious at first and then became a very deep level unconscious decision to never get that angry or let that level of power be expressed again. And notice what I said, let that level of power be expressed again. Now, this particular part of the face relates to what we call the father's blessing area. In other words, the relationship that you had with the primary yang or masculine figure in your life. So when it appears here, that is almost always anger directed at the dominant masculine archetype in the family. Now, we live in a very, very different level of cultural awareness, a lot of woke stuff going on, all those other things. So to just be very clear, if you were raised in a 2-female family, you could still have this line. Okay, so whoever was the dominant yang masculine energy, the authority figure, that it can be a woman, right? So let's be very clear. And I know this for a fact because my wife and her mom have some issues that we're working through many times, right? So I've seen this, but what happens is that there's this big blow up. The person makes a decision, I'm never going to let that shit happen again. I'm never going to lose control like that ever again. And they put a governor, they put a block right on their power to achieve. Now, at first, that's not a big problem. But what happens is as you move forward in life, you tend to become more well-known, more accomplished, things of that nature. People who put a block on their energy will reach a point in their evolution. They'll reach a point in their journey where that energy block manifests and they can't go beyond it. And when they hit that block, and it can manifest a bunch of different ways, they'll either get angry and have a fight with the person or the organization they're a part of, and they'll leave. They'll get super passive aggressive and get themselves fired. They'll just lose interest and start something completely new. So many times, these people are very, very smart, very, very talented, and they're a jack of all trades, but they never seem to get beyond a certain level. And they're always trying to prove themselves. And they're always, in my opinion, as a therapist, they're still fighting a battle that happened years ago. And because you happen to be the person standing in front of them that represents that figure, you can get targeted with that. So when I see this line, understand that it may not happen right away. It may not manifest immediately, but the more energy and the more power and the more accomplished that person becomes, the closer they're going to get to finding some way to remove themselves from the equation, either peaceably or not. These people have a tendency to be very passive aggressive. So don't be surprised if they say and do things that cause you to lose your temper. And when you lose your temper, then they get all offended and find a reason to leave. Okay. Is it at the same point as the third eye or the pineal gland? Well, the pineal gland's all the way back here, guys. It's actually just below the, if I don't have a picture, but the third eye is up here for sure, right? It's in that third eye. We call this the seat of the stamp. Again, you'll learn this in April when you come to face reading. This area is a really, really important place in terms of behavior, personality, how a person functions within an organization. Organizational dynamic can be seen very, very clearly here, right? So a lot of cool stuff. But when you see that line, you know, if it's a first date, if it's a job interview, you might want to start asking about their history and see if you can notice a pattern in what they're sharing with you. Brad is asking, I missed, does the space between a pair of those lines mean something special? My teacher never really talked about the spacing between the two lines. And I've seen them take all configurations, I will tell you one thing though. This is not necessarily about impatience, but this is actually something that for the therapists out there, you life coaches, this is something that you may want to pay attention to. Sometimes you'll see a line that looks like it's one of these lines, but instead of just stopping here or here, it'll creep down into and contour the orbital bone. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And when you see that kind of a wrinkle, this is somebody who's prone to worry, anxiety, and overthinking. Okay. So this person always has a shit ton of stuff on their minds. And so their spleen gets a really strong workout. Okay. Last but probably not least for today, on the emotions anyway, is disempowerment lines. These are lines that start at around the first third of the lower eyelid, and they migrate diagonally, kind of like pain lines, towards the bridge of the nose. Now, my teacher Lillian called these disempowerment lines, and I understand where she was coming from with that term, but I don't think it really encompasses or captures the spirit of what this particular trait means. And it's really important. If you see people that are dealing with any form of abuse, especially long-term domestic abuse, sexual abuse, whether it's as a child, a spouse, whatever, and you see these lines, let me explain what this means. This is somebody came along and violated their boundary. Like this person came in, violated their boundary. And when the person's boundaries got violated, they tried to fight back. They tried to stand up. They tried to push back. And when they tried to push back, the person who was the transgressor, the violator, pushed back even harder. And instead of continuing to fight, this person collapsed. They crumpled. They went into appeasement mode. Right? It's okay, whatever you want. Just stop hitting me. Please don't hurt me. I'll do whatever you say. Right? I'll make it okay. I'll make it right. Right? And so these people become appeasers. They again, at the risk of throwing a really good classic television show under the bus. How many people here are familiar with an old television sitcom called All in the Family? Type it in the chat if you're familiar with it. Okay. If you haven't, it was you got to remember it was done in the 70s and it was all about bigoted white people, right? Or bigoted anyone. right? But there was one particular character in that show. Her name was Edith Bunker. She was the wife of Archie Bunker, the main character in the show. And every time Archie was pissed, you would hear Edith from across the house. It's okay, Archie. I'll make it better. It's going to be fine. Just calm down. I'll help. I'll make it better. Right? That's appeasement. That's appeasement in a caricature. Okay. Now, one of the things you as a therapist, a self-defense instructor, have to understand, I shouldn't even say that. We talk more about this particular aspect in Defense Against the Dark Arts. But if you see someone with these markings, what can we extrapolate about them? What do we know about them? Just type it in the chat. Fear associated, okay. Abused, okay. They've been emotionally abused. There's a good chance. Now, can you have these lines without being textbook emotionally abused? There it is, Brad, right there. They'll fold if pressured. So, if you're hiring for a revenue collector, or somebody who has to do a lot of firing, is this going to be a good fit? Right? From a self-defense perspective, let's assume that some body language cues are unconsciously understood. Do you think if somebody saw these lines, they would know what kind of a fight a person would put up? Right. Edie says they're going to avoid confrontation, avoid conflict at all costs. These are the people that can sometimes get roofied and never report it. Right? I'm not saying that if you have these lines that that's true for you. I'm saying these are possibilities, because what's going to happen is when your boundaries are violated and you put up that resistance and somebody gives you a bigger one, you just want it to stop. You just want to make it go away, right? But as people, as human beings, we sometimes have to stand up for ourselves no matter how much force is being applied. And that's something that we as therapists and healers, we can help people find those resources in themselves, or at least move them in that direction, right? We can't want the change more than the other person does. But if we're dealing with someone with some kind of chronic illness and we see these markings, I promise you at some point, you're probably going to be clearing some kind of abuse issue. Okay. So my teacher called these disempowerment lines, but I think a better word is appeasement lines. These are lines that when somebody crosses your boundary and you push back hard enough, they're just going to give you whatever you want. Right. So questions about this before we go into phase 2 of our webinar? Okay. What do spots and zits on the hairline behind the ears, on the ears and behind the ears indicate? Usually that's what we call internal dampness. Depending on the color, it can be damp heat or cold dampness, stuff like that. We'll talk a little bit about colors in part 3. Is it both appeasement and hopelessness? No, I would say it's mostly appeasement. Hopelessness is more related to the heart and to the lungs. Despair specifically. So you would see those in here, in this part of the face. Usually as grief or sorrow or some manifestation thereof. No problem. All right. So I want you to stop for a moment. We're going to go into phase 2 of the webinar, but before we do, I want you to stop for a moment and think about what do you want to be able to do as a byproduct from tonight's training? Right? What is it you want to be able to do? I'm moving you. I wanted to, for the sake of being comprehensive and complete, I wanted to finish the emotional map on phase 3. We're going to come back and start looking at the elemental side of things, right? And then I'll customize it and we'll go from there. But go ahead and type in the chat the things you want to be able to do as a byproduct of tonight's training. And let's go ahead and jump into phase 2. Entertain. Oh, you're going to be super entertaining, Richard. And with your permission, I'd like to go ahead and share some stuff with you. First and foremost, I'd like you to introduce you to our Face Reading for Fun and Profit home study course. This is how to read anyone instantly. And this is primarily a reorganization of the original face reading system that I was taught. It's organized so that you don't need to know anything about Chinese energetics, 5 elements, or Oriental medicine in any way, shape, or form to use it. And if you follow the training, you'll be able to profile a person's complete face from the top of the hairline to the chin line in as little as 90 seconds. And it just gets deeper from there. So this particular course is really all about helping you take your life to the next level, either through understanding yourself, having the ability to read people instantly, to learn how to predict their behaviors, and help more people help themselves, right? This, to me, I think, the face reading system, more people need to know it, more people need to be doing it, because it's such a force multiplier to every form of therapy, coaching, negotiation, mentoring, matchmaking, any place where people need to be compatible, any place where the prediction of behaviors and attitudes that people are most likely to engage in. This is like, it's like having cheat codes in an ethical and honest way. If you want to be the most popular person and sometimes the most feared person in your social circle, this is probably a really good skill set for you to embody. So you'll wind up helping more people, feeling more confident, powerful, and you ultimately find that the game of life gets a lot easier for you because you know what's coming. You can see how people are going to behave. It's literally written on their face. And as a byproduct of this, you're going to become more charming, charismatic, and irresistible than you ever thought possible. If you're a hypnotist and you know how to do this, the level of suggestibility that you will enjoy with clients is off the charts. If you're a neurolinguistic programmer or some kind of counselor and you want higher levels of compliance, higher levels of openness, connection, trust, expectation, this is the program that this will lever all those slides. Now, this offers that I'm going to talk to you about is good until March 25th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. But don't worry, it's perfectly worth it. It's at the regular price, right? So we're going to start with, let me go ahead and move this over here so I can actually read it better. It's going to start with the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study course. This is a powerful, proven, real-world face reading skill system and psychological intervention process that allows you to read personality, temperament, trauma, and it's awesome. It's going to teach you to assess temperaments and personalities, thinking and decision-making styles, unlock emotional traumas, their management styles. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that stuff in part 3 of the webinar. We'll talk about sexual and romantic compatibility, how people manage money and resources, or how they should be managing their money and resources versus what their natural predispositions kind of led them to do. It's easy. You can actually look at somebody's nose and figure out their spending habits pretty well. If you really want to understand yourself better, I haven't found a better on-ramp into personal transformation and self-directed transformation in the face reading system, because the face doesn't lie. The face points you in the direction of what you need to explore, what you need to unpack, what you need to release. And if you have the skills, which we're going to make sure that you have, then you'll be able to do that consistently anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance, for pretty much any reason. So that being said, if you want to be able to predict human behavior to a high degree and then influence it, this is what you want to learn about. If you want to be the most fascinating person in the room and never be fooled again, ooh, that's big. Okay, there actually is some very valid, very powerful ways of using face reading as a form of lie detection. I would combine it with other methods, but still very, very powerful. So this is a $1,997 value, but we're not going to stop there. Obviously, this is the beginning, the belt buckle, if you will, the nexus of a much more comprehensive and robust set of skills. So we're going to include for you these special bonuses. And these bonuses include our number one NLP course worldwide, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Speed, Profiling, Influence, and Counter Manipulation Home Study Course. This is a really, really, this is usually a main offer in some of our other webinars, but we thought this was such an important framework for applying face reading to protect yourself and the people you care about, that we had to include this as part of your face reading package. So you'll learn how to think like a master influencer and how to avoid being the target of a master influencer. We'll talk about victimology. We'll talk about what do these evil influencers look for? What kind of pain points? What kind of facial cues and characteristics? What kind of lifestyle signals do they target you? They target so that they can influence you at your weakest. We're going to teach you how to control your own emotional state so no one else can do it for you. This is a really, really, in fact, if there was a Jedi skill in Planet David, it would be this combined with the power rapport skills that I'm about to talk about. When you have a full grasp of the emotional state control training, no one will ever be able to push your buttons for any length of time ever again. You'll be able to enter or exit or chain any set of emotional states you want at will automatically. You'll be able to take that skill set, combine it with power rapport, and be able to actually link to somebody else's nervous system, kind of like syncing up a Bluetooth, and actually prime them to think, feel, and behave a certain way based on your own body feelings. We have the saying that the fastest way to change somebody's behaviors or decisions is to change their body feelings. The fastest way to change a person's body feelings is to change yours first. And that's what level 2 and 3 of this bulleted list is all about. How to think like a master of influence, how to control your own emotional state, how to link those emotional states to the states of other people and influence those before you even open your mouth for the benefit of everyone. Now, what if you had magical powers? What if you had an ability to simply speak a few words and in the minds of your subject cause anything you want, or make anything you want seem to cause anything you want in the minds of your listener? That's what the first pattern we're going to teach you is all about. What if you had the ability to make anything you want mean anything you want in the minds of your listener, even if those things had absolutely zero in common? Right? What if we could take some of those markings on the face and change how people thought about them so that they could release them faster and get healthier quicker? What if we could say that you change the cause of a particular marking and say, well, it's not really this that caused this, it's this. And with that change, give them abilities and access to resources that would let them clear those emotions faster, right? This is what I'm talking about. Language pattern 3. What if you had the ability to change a person's focus of attention in such a way that they would only pay attention to the things you described or named and ignored everything else? On top of that, what if you had the ability to make their unconscious mind just run a program or a process, whether their conscious mind wanted to or not, right? That's just part 4 and 5 of what you're going to be able to do with these powerful hypnotic language patterns. What if you had the ability to make any internal movie that a person's running in their head or their heart be exactly what you describe with 0% chance of making a mistake? What if that were possible? That's what the first 6 superpowers in the hypnotic language pattern module will teach you, okay? What if you had the ability to literally extract a person's internal behavior code? Remember, we said everything that human beings do has a process, a pattern. What if we could extract that pattern, put a decision or an action or behavior that we want or need them to make into that structure, feed it back to them, and have them actually just take it in and do it like you would enter a command into your GPS or a program? That's what level 6 of this process, or 7 in the process, is. What if we could take a person's own emotional needs and wants and the rules by which they define that they're getting those things and bond it to whatever behavior, product, or service you want to do that with, and do it in a completely ethical and honest way? That's the influencing part of Defense Against the Dark Arts. This is our core Killer Influence NLP Ultra protocol, but we're not going to stop there, because Defense Against the Dark Arts is all about protecting yourself and your loved ones from unethical influence. So of course there's more to this. What if we had the master keys for how to read anyone instantly? What if we could look at somebody and instantly have not a laundry list, but a checklist, if you would, in our head of the most common indicators of deception? We actually have two of those in the class. One is called the Use Deception Indicator Scale. The other is called the Hansen 15. So we'll teach you the fundamentals of kinesic interview and interrogation, and how to look at body language and interpret it towards and away from positive or negative, comfortable or uncomfortable, and then the top 15 to 30 techniques that are cues that let you know somebody has a high probability of being deceptive. Okay, that's where we're going to teach. That's one of the things you're going to learn. We're going to teach you how to spot sociopaths, narcissists, and other evil predatory a-holes. These are people who find ways to infiltrate your life and do horrible things to the people you love and care about. We're going to show you how to look for them, the flags to spot, and what to do about them when they actually show up. We're going to talk about speed profiling secrets for preventing predators from getting their hooks into you in the first place. We're going to talk about predatory psychology and how these people actually sort for their victims. What are the tactics and the traits that they look for? What are the most common methods that they use, right? We'll talk about, and this is also teach this in Soulmate Secrets. We'll talk about why sometimes the worst characteristics in a person look like their best. That blows people's minds, right? But a lot of times, possessive looks a lot like caring, and condescending looks a lot like confident, or knowing what you want. We'll show you how to sort those things out once and for all. You're going to get the 21 conversational red flags narcissists and sociopaths use to avoid taking responsibility for the events they cause, and how to instantly turn the tables on them. You'll also be introduced to how to instantly spot microexpression changes and subtle cues, and many more bonus chapters on psychological tactics and influence. Total price on this or value on this is $1,997. The total combined value between face reading for fun and profit level 1 and defense against the dark arts is $3,994. But as you can probably guess, we're not done yet. We have, for those of you coming up, for those of you who are more therapeutically oriented, we're going to include one of our most powerful alchemical process programs ever. This is our Identity by Design hypnotherapy home study course. This was recorded live. It comes with the manual, and it's going to teach you systematically how to unlock the power of your subconscious mind. You'll literally gain the ability to hypnotize anyone, anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance, for any reason. We're going to teach you how to systematically remove the blocks and limiting beliefs that your clients and you did not even know you had, so you can replace it with something better. We're going to teach you how to find and remove the hidden negativity and retention rules. In other words, when people create a traumatic memory or a limiting belief, they often have certain reasons for holding on to that trauma or limiting belief. And if you don't deal with that reason for holding on to it, the body will fight you and will not let go of the trauma. So we teach you how to neutralize that, so the body's happy to let that trauma go once and for all. We call that specialized negativity clearing. We're going to teach you how to clear up issues that just don't seem to go away. This goes back once again to the safety lessons that people often attach to their traumatic memories. If you've ever had a problem that you've went to somebody for, they've done an intervention and it went away and came back later, you've got safety lessons. If you've ever had an issue that you went to somebody for, and maybe it was at a 7, 8, 9, 10, and you went through the process of clearing and clearing and clearing, and then it hit like a 1 or 2, and then it just stopped moving, you've got safety lessons from our perspective. We'll show you how to systematically remove that stuff in yourself, but and even more importantly, we'll show you how to remove it for your clients and the people you care about too. If you've ever had to deal with a crappy voice inside your head that just tells you all the reasons why you don't deserve success, why you shouldn't invest in yourself, why you can't be successful, the voice that tears you down instead of builds you up, if you're tired of that voice and you want to know how to change it in yourself and change it in your clients, your mentees, and so forth, that's phase 4 of the Identity by Design process. It's going to go in, it's going to clear out that voice, and it's going to replace it with a voice that tells you all the reasons why you deserve to have it, that reminds you that you're always loved, you're always good enough, You're always accepted, protected, forgiven for all wrongs, real or imagined, and you're never, ever alone. When we did this on our last Identity by Design class last week, the transformations were off the charts. This is one of the most powerful transformational methodologies we've come up with, and you're going to learn how to do it. You're going to experience it, and your clients are going to be blown away by the changes that are going to roll out as a byproduct of this particular process, right? We're going to teach you how to systematically dissolve and drain all the negativity from your past memories, so that when you look back on the past, which is something all of us do before we do something in the future, we look at our past to see what we've done. But now when you look back on the past, you'll only remember your life in ways that make your life better. You'll only remember it in ways that excite you and inspire you and energize you to go for things, right? And then finally, we're going to teach you how to do this for yourself, and then for your clients, how to install in your own mind and body the same qualities, characteristics, and attributes of people who you truly admire, of people who you want to be more like, right? The technical term for this is called deep trance identification. You may have also heard of it called the Rykov effect, or for those of you who are more into current self-help books, you may have heard of something called the alter ego effect. We'll show you how to build these things, install them into your own mind and body, so that you can activate them and have them active whenever you want to in your own life. Okay, it's a $1,497 value. We're going to give this to you free because we don't want you to just be the person who can diagnose what's going on through a person's face. We want you to have the ability to confirm what the face is telling you and to clean it out and resolve it once and for all. And that's why we included this course as part of your get it all done package, right? It's one thing to talk about shit that people need to fix or point things out to them. It's another thing to actually have the tools and the skills and the abilities to do that yourself without having to refer them out. Now, if you want to refer people out, that's fine. But if you want a one-stop shop, want to be able to, from soup to nuts, fix what's broken or fix what needs fixing, this is going to let you do that. And it's going to add massive, massive bumps to your revenue stream. It's a $5,491 value. These same techniques, by the way, are used by the U.S. Olympic swim team. They've been using them for like at least 8 years that I know of. They learned them from one of my students, Joni Nady, and they've been super, super powerful. Okay, but we're not done. For those of you who are really into body language and for the ability to read people, we've talked about the face, right? We've talked about the language of deception, but what about the rest of the body? What about how people stand? What about how people are dressing? What about how they're sitting? What kind of body language can we learn from that? What can we extrapolate from that? So I'm including this special 2-day intensive that I taught called People Reading for Fun and Profit, Body Language Secrets. During this program, we're going to teach you what's going on from the neck down. In fact, some of the 5 element stuff we'll be talking about in part 3 of the webinar is actually really useful with this stuff as well. So we'll teach you how to read people's body languages and expressions to understand the body language of attraction. You know, most people go through a 5-stage attraction process. And if you can read those 5 stages, you can pretty much write your own ticket with the people of your choice. We're going to teach you how to detect lies and other deceptive behaviors based on how people move their bodies towards and away from, open or closed. Right? We're going to teach you how to influence people without words. One of the coolest things we taught at Identity by Design was what we call the internal rocking sensation versus the external rocking sensation, and that you can actually cause people to go into a deep, deep trance just by rocking yourself in a certain way. It's really kind of fun. If you want to understand men better, ladies, we'll show you how to do that. Men, if you want to understand women better, we're going to show you how to do that. Because it's actually really important to understand that there's a translation issue from one gender to the next. I don't care what your gender orientation is, what your gender preference is. There are certain behaviors, certain fundamental aspects to the way you guys process. I'm using the editorial guys, by the way. The way you people process data from the other genders that can cause you to mistranslate what's being attempted at being communicated. And if we don't understand how to fix that translation, we're going to be on the wrong end of somebody's bad impression more often than not. So it's really important to understand how the other gender interprets certain types of body language, certain types of speech, so you can engineer your communications to be more fulfilling and effective. We're going to teach you how to eliminate the behaviors that weaken your influence. Things like when you're sitting at a table and you're constantly touching your face. Touching your face in a conversation tends to weaken your credibility and influence, right? We're going to show you how to dress for success. One of the early mentors was a woman named Taylor Sinclair. And one of the things that she taught us was that there's a certain hierarchy of dress that is fairly universal in at least Western culture. And we're going to teach you what that looks like so you can decide, you can engineer what level of social status you want to exude in any particular venue or any particular context or environment. Sometimes coming in with too much status or dressed at such a too high a status level will actually weaken and undermine your ability to influence and persuade because it just doesn't fit, right? And vice versa. So these things are important. And these are things a lot of people don't think about too much beyond, should I wear a red power tie or a blue power tie or a yellow power tie, right? There's a little bit more going on. So we're going to give you a little bit of a deep dive into that. Total value is $1,497. We're going to give this to you free. Total combined value so far is $6,988. So let's just review what we've got here. You're going to get the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study course valued at $1,997. You're going to get the Speed Profiling Defense Against the Dark Arts, absolutely free, value of $1,997. You're going to get the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. You're going to get the People Reading for Fun and Profit 2-day intensives of $1,497 value. We're going to give this to you absolutely free. And so total value is $6,988. Now, I want you guys to have the best deal humanly possible. Okay. I want you guys to do this. We need more people like you out here using these skills, learning these skills, and helping people rescue themselves and get themselves out of the shit that they put themselves in, either from bad programming, too much time being locked in their house, whatever. We want you to be on the forefront of the people to have this. So you're not going to have to pay $6,988. Okay. We're not even going to, if we knocked it down by half, it would still be a great deal, but we're not even going to charge you that. We're not even going to charge you $1,497, although it'll be a freaking good deal at that. For those of you who want to get started, those of you who want to really get the fast track to taking your practice, whatever that is, to a higher level, to being more socially able, more charismatic, more attractive, able to make better hiring decisions, better team decisions, to find and match people up better sexually and romantically. You don't have to pay $1,497. You can get it all today for one low installment of $997, or if you want, you can break that up into 3 easy installments of just $397 each. And all you got to do to get yours is go to click this link right here, www.nlppower.com/face. That's www.nlppower.com/FACE. Click the link right now so you can reserve your spot, because as you can probably figure out, I'm not done yet. So there might be some other goodies coming your way that if you click that link right now, you'll get them before they're all gone. Okay. Now, for those of you who are wondering, well, I don't know, David, I'm a little iffy. I don't know. Well, here's the thing. You don't have to believe me. Click your link now. Test this material. Go out, start reading faces for a full 60 days. Start reading your own face for a full 60 days. If at the end of 60 days, you're not convinced that you're on the fast track, you've got for lack of a better word, the cheat codes to understanding people better, to reading their personality instantly. If you're not using those skills or being able to find yourself able to use those skills to attract more success and manifest the life of your dreams, I'll refund all your money, right? If these skills are not helping you read people faster and better so you can feel more confident, more secure, confident, and powerful, and you're not winning more socially, I'll refund every dime you invested in this program. But I know for a fact that if you apply this training and you go out and you start using this, I don't care if you're at Starbucks, I don't care if you're at Barnes and Noble, any place where people congregate, you are going to be the belle of the ball. You're going to be the life of the party. People are going to line up out the door to hear what you have to say. And the best part is you don't even need to tell people what you know. You can just move through the world reading everybody like a book and avoiding all kinds of crap because you know what to look for, right? Every decision in your life can be better as a face reader, okay? So if after 60 days, let's say 59 days, you're not convinced, it's not working for you for whatever reason, just pick up the phone, give Moss or me a call. We'll refund every dime you invested. You have absolutely nothing to lose here. Just click that link right now. Click it now, www.nlppower.com/face. Click your links before all the special bonuses I haven't told you about yet are all gone. Okay? What special bonuses, David? Well, I'm glad you asked. Right? As if this wasn't enough, if you grab your course before March 25th, 2024, we're going to also include these special fast action bonuses. First and foremost, we're going to give you the one thing that turns you from zero to hero once you have the course. And that's the ability to practice, the opportunity to work with other people just like you who want to learn how to get better at this stuff, right? Since October of 2010, we have run the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Practice Group and the archive that goes with it. We get together on the third Saturday of every month, and I literally go around the room and I say, Jake, what do you want to learn? Rob, what do you want to learn? Matt, what do you want to learn? Moss, what do you want to learn? Teresa, what do you want to learn? Holly, what do you want to learn? Jax, what do you want to learn? Seth, what do you want to learn? And I just go right through, like last class, we had like 40 people, almost 30, 40 people in the class. I ask them what they want to learn for that day. And I look at what they've written. I find the connecting threads. And then for the next 4 to 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours, depending on the day, I drill you on those skills until you can use them in your sleep. And then you go out into the world and you apply those skills. Now, you will not get a certificate from participating in the NLP Power Mastermind. What you will get is the one thing that makes all the certifications worth having: the ability to actually do this. Right? My job in the mentoring program is to help you troubleshoot the stuff that you need help with, to give you an opportunity to practice. Now, if you're local to the San Diego area, you actually have the opportunity to come to my office and train in person while everybody else is virtual or streaming, right? So if you're in the San Diego, Los Angeles, Arizona area, and you don't mind driving, you can come over and you can train with us in person for no extra price. In fact, this is a free bonus. We're going to give you 3 months of this. Now, we've also videotaped, I should say, I say videotape because when I started this, we were still using videotape, right? But we've video recorded every single practice session that we have done since October of 2010. And we've archived those videos, 13 years worth, on the NLP Power website. We've archived them on our private Facebook group, and we've archived them, parts of it, in our platinum and above members area in the YouTube channel. You're going to get as part of your 90-day membership, you're going to get unlimited access to the entire 13-year video archive. 99% of this stuff has never been put out in a YouTube video to the public. It's never appeared in any form of product. It is completely virgin. The only people who can access that archive are the Mastermind Mentoring members in good standing. So if you want to binge watch stuff that's 13 years worth of stuff on everything from dating and attraction to face reading to manifestation to accelerated learning to trauma resolution to hidden laws of attraction, handwriting analysis, psychic skills, energy work, you name it, remote influencing, remote viewing, it's all in there, right? The only problem that you'll have is knowing where to start, and because the curriculum on a month-to-month basis is member-driven, there will be quite a bit of repetition because a lot of people have the same questions. But every now and then, somebody will ask a question that pulls out some solid gold. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. You can binge watch it for an entire 90 days, absolutely free. It's a $1,997 value. At the end of the 90-day membership, if you decide you want to stay because you love the people, and I do, then we'll show you how to extend your membership, right? Total combined value is $8,985. I see the questions, and hopefully Moss and Mia can ask those or answer those questions while I continue to talk, but we're not done yet. If you click that link right now, we're also going to give you Face Reading Level 2, Face Reading for Fun and Profit Home Study Course. This will teach you everything that you learned in Face Reading 1 and a whole lot more. The difference, though, is Face Reading 1, we actually released that during COVID. Face reading, so everything we did was above the mask. So it was designed to be able to be used while people were wearing a facial mask. Face reading 2 was everything below the mask, everything that was covered by the mask, the profiles, the ear shapes, all of those things. So we go even more in depth into the Chinese and into the energetics of it, into the different facial characteristics, what they mean, how you combine them, how to profile. We'll talk about different how lips how different configurations of people's lips can actually project how they handle sexual and romantic boundaries, how generous they are, how willful they are, how stubborn they are, how fast they make decisions, how slowly or quickly they take action. These are all things that you will learn in face reading level 2 based on your ability to look at people from a profile, right? Their risk tolerance, their financial risk tolerance versus their physical risk tolerances, how bossy they are, how prone to accumulating wealth they might be. These are all parts of face reading level 2. It's a $1,997 value. Comes with actually 2 manuals because there's a lot of stuff in there. Combined is total of $10,982. We're going to give this to you free when you click your link right now and just go ahead and grab your course. And up until recently, this was never released on our website. So now for the next 21 people to register today, I got something else I want to share with you, right? Our next 5-element face reading for fun and profit mega training. This is a combination of my regular 5-element face reading, my modern 5-element face reading training, combined with the 5-element system I was originally taught and energetic building, managing, and regulating practices. We're actually going to start teaching you about things like Jing and Qi and Shen, and how you can begin to not only balance your elements, you can clear stuff out, you can build your own energy, you can start to really become powerful on a Qi level or on a Shen level or even on a Jing level. You know, I can show you what to do, I can show you how to do it, but I can't do it for you. So this is going to be, David's just going to pull out all the stops, and for 3 days, you and me are going to dive headfirst into the wonderful world of 5-element energetics, face reading, personality, temperament, and behavior. All right, it's April 26th to the 28th, 2024. And I believe a hybrid option is available. This is what we call a VIP super ticket, and I want to talk about that. The discounted price is for first-time buyers only, and the way the VIP super ticket works is you get to come to any training that you have that has a designated VIP ticket. That ticket does not expire. So if you can't make the April 26th training, but you do have this VIP ticket in our database, then you can use it for the next face reading training. Because last webinar I also offered a choice. You could do 5-element face reading, or you could do the 5-day defense against the dark arts training. If you have a VIP ticket and you think that you would rather learn defense against the dark arts instead, then we'll let you use that VIP ticket towards one or the other. But this is the VIP tickets at the current price of $997 are for first-time buyers only. If you've used one of our webinar packages before, there are other ways that you can get a nice big discount on these VIP tickets, but you'll have to talk to Moss directly or speak to Mia, and they can put that number in the chat. So this is a live face reading certification, and I will be bringing random people in, and I'll be encouraging you to read people's faces all throughout the hotel. Right? And we'll go from there. So $3,150 value. And this is actually the write-up for Defense Against the Dark Arts. But yeah, total value is $14,132. But wait, there's more. Some people just want my help to fix their stuff. So for the next 15 people who click this link, we're going to bundle with everything else that I've shown you a free VIP ticket. This can only be used for this intensive, by the way. A VIP ticket to our next online virtual healing intensive with yours truly, Dr. David. This is 3 days of unstoppable transformation and healing practices that I will personally be guiding you through. I promise you that you will come into this training one way and you will leave in a very, very different way going forward. And it's going to be an amazing experience for most people. We tested this for the first time a couple months ago, and people absolutely loved it. Now, I will tell you right up front, that if you're looking for certification, if you're looking for things that you can do with clients, that is not the focus of this workshop. This workshop is strictly and completely for you. It's designed to help you to target, isolate, and remove the stuff that's holding you back in any aspect of your life, and to help you install and put in the things you want and need to become the best version of yourself humanly possible. It's me and my skill set and you and a small group of people going through 3 days of just one transformation after another. Okay, there is these intensives will never be a product because of the personal nature of the information that we're going to be helping you guys clear. We will have a very highly trained staff. If there's people who need individualized attention from time to time, they will be available. People I would trust with any client that came to me for help. You know, Holly and Heather and Moss. I don't know who else we might have in the lineup, but if Seth will probably be there as well. So these are people who are highly, highly trained, and I have repeatedly thrown to the wolves, and they have consistently tamed those wolves and turned them into loving puppies, so to speak. So they are highly, highly competent and highly, highly trained. But if you're looking for something, the fast track to change and transformation, if you want to get unstuck but good, then click that link right now, and jump in for the next 3-day virtual healing intensive. And this is virtual. There is no live training for this. It will all be done through Zoom. So you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to travel. You don't have to pay for any expensive hotels or anything like that. April 12th to the 14th, completely online. It's a $1,497 value. And it's 3 full days of personal healing practices, dissolving negativity you didn't even know you had, getting rid of physical and emotional pain, and resolving traumas, phobias, and self-sabotage, putting a dead stop halt to procrastination, and destroying limiting beliefs once and for all, and a whole lot more. All right. All you got to do to get yours, total value for that is $15,629. Do the math, folks. Balance that out, right? And let's look at what we got, just to kind of sum it all up for you. Got the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Course valued at $1,997. You have Defense Against the Dark Arts Home Study Course, $1,970 value. We're going to give that to you free. You got the Real World Hypnosis Identity by Design Home Study Course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you free. You got the People Reading for Fun and Profit Home Study Course, Everything Below the Mask. I'm sorry, that's for the body, everything below the neck, around $1,497 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get the 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, plus the 13-year archive, $1,997 value, completely free. You're going to get the Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2 Home Study Course, Below the Mask Training, $1,997 value. And you're going to get that VIP Super Ticket, 5-element Face Reading for Fun and Profit. Or if you prefer, you can swap it out for the Defense Against the Dark Art, or I'm sorry, the NLP Ultra 5-day training coming up in May 2026. When you call Moss, you just got to let him know which training you're coming to. You can't have both. It's one or the other. You're coming to Face Reading or you're coming to NLP Ultra. I know I said Defense Against the Dark Arts earlier, but it's actually NLP Ultra. And regardless of which of those trainings you choose, you'll all qualify for the 3-day virtual healing intensive, April 12th through the 12th, 13th, 14th, I think it was. I think I got my dates wrong here. April 12th, 13th, and 14th here online. Okay, so total value, $15,629. Your investment, one time only, $997. All you got to do to get yours is click this link right here, nlppower.com/face. Or if you need a little extra help, you want to do it in 3 installments, just click that link now, nlppower.com/FACE. Click the link, and we're going to go ahead and let you guys, we're going to give you guys like a 7-minute break to finalize that stuff. When we come back, we're going to jump into 5-element energetics, and we're going to continue to talk about these elements, what they look like at work, and how you can begin to apply these things in your daily life. So I hope you stick with us. It's going to be fun. These are things that I've almost never taught to the general public. So stay with us, and we'll be back shortly. Take care. All right, folks, we're back. Hopefully you guys had a chance to talk to the Moss or the Mia. Click those links and get your guys' reservations in. But we're now back to part 3 of tonight's webinar. And part 3 of tonight's webinar, I lovingly call the customization phase. This is where we get to take our intentions, the content that we had laid out. Because I'll be upfront with you. Whenever I do a webinar, I always have probably enough content for 10 webinars, like easily, right? Because I usually bring all my training notes when I do this. And the reason I do that is because everyone who shows up on a webinar has a different vibe to them. And here's what I mean. I had a training once where everybody in the training had the same problems. Like they were from completely different socioeconomic formats. They were there from different parts of the world. And everybody who had similar problems wound up sitting right next to somebody else who had the same problem. Like marketing people would wind up next to marketing people. Healthcare people would wind up next to healthcare people. It was really fascinating. And one of the things I learned early on is that when people come to a training, they have a specific outcome that they want, a specific thing they want to learn. And that if you can take the time to find out what those are and give them that, they will come away with the best experience humanly possible in spite of all the other stuff you could have taught them, because they got what they came for, if that makes any kind of sense. Some people will say, what are you, crazy? That's going to make people like not buy your stuff or whatever. I said, look, here's the thing. You don't buy a car without test driving, right? If there's a problem that you need and somebody can show you that they have the solution, there's always going to be another problem that needs to be solved. So I'm going to give you good stuff up front that you came for, if I can, and then show you where to go for more. And that's been my modus operandi from the beginning. And have I, just as a quick aside, have I kept that promise? Have I kind of showed you guys the stuff you wanted to learn, and has it been useful for you? Answer yes. Okay. Edie says yes. Thank you. All right. So here's the thing. We're going to talk about 5-element energetics now, but now, once again, this is the scope of everything in face reading. What I gave you at the beginning of this webinar and the beginning of the webinar on the 11th were the charts from the face reading system I was learning that I thought were immediately useful. Like the moment I could just take these, put them in a binder, and I'm ready to go, right? Some of the other things, especially when we start working with the energetics and things like that, they can be as useful, but there's a little bit more foundation that needs to go with that. So here's what I'd like you guys to do right now for the spirit of part 3 is, what is it you guys most want to know about right now? Just type it in the chat, what you most want to know about. And then we'll kind of do this like my mastermind, where I say, what do you want to learn? What do you want to learn? And I'll go to the information that I have prepared, and I'll pull out the information that satisfies that. Does that sound like a plan? Yes or yes? Cool. All right, type away, guys. YouTubers, you heard me. Type away. Show me what you're working with. Good negotiation skills. Okay. How to get rid of my resistance lines. Edie, what's a resistance line, sweetie? I don't understand. When you say resistance line, what does that mean? What time in the USA times are the healing intensive sessions? They'll start at 10 a.m. Pacific. 10 a.m. Pacific. The ones, are you talking about the appeasement lines? These lines here? Okay. All right. So it sounds like you guys are more interested in clearing stuff. Is there a reason why I do not find out why I do not experience orgasm based on my face? Actually, that's a definite maybe. Francesca, is it Francesca or Jacqueline? Can't remember. I missed the name, went by so quick. How to work as effectively but mitigating possible conflicts that may arise from someone with aphantasia. Okay, when we start working with people, okay, this is starting to become a hypnotherapy class, not a face reading class. But I see where this is going. Build more self-awareness, what people are really feeling that could be more easily related to. Okay. All right. So let's start by painting some very broad strokes. Rochelle is asking how to heal from narcissistic partner for over 26 years. Rochelle, you're going to hear this a few seconds after I actually said it. You're going to have to, that's going to be a transformational triad and regress to cause work, right? The markings that you need to heal, they'll be obvious on the face, but the emotions and the stories connected to those emotions, those are good things that need to be unpacked and attacked. Rob H is asking how to use these skills during interviews. Oh, great question, Rob. All right, so let's start. So how many of you actually know the 5 elements? When I say 5 elements, do you actually know what I mean? So Lacey says yes. Willow says yes. Okay, Edie says, and that's fine. I'm going to assume you don't, but I don't want to. But I want to preface that in case I'm like insulting the intelligence of people who are coming from an Oriental medical background or something like that. So let's talk. Now you can think of the energy, the 5 elements. I'm going to go ahead and maybe park myself a little bit if that's okay, because I feel like I'm going into professor mode, so I want to sit a little bit. One of the things that has messed people up a lot with 5 elements, and there's different ways you can think about it. Now, 5 elements is actually not the literal translation of what they call wuxing. Wuxing literally means, and it's XYNG, by the way, literally means 5 transformations. So what it is one energy becoming a different energy, 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 and then the interrelationships between those energies. So when we start talking about 5 elements, yes, there are energetic frequencies and correspondences that we can tap into, but on one level you can think of them as little energies, but it's usually helpful, I've found, for people to understand that what we're talking about is the relationship of one part of the body or one part of the organ system or meridian system to another. Some of these systems will have a beneficial relationship. In other words, for example, we know that fire is used to feed wood. I'm sorry, wood is used to feed fire, right? And so those have a mother-son relationship where wood is the mother of fire, but fire will produce ash, which is earth. So fire, which is the son of mother, is also, did I get that right? Fire is the mother of wood, will become the mother of earth, and so forth. So there's a cycle of energetics that one cycle creates the next piece in the page. But there's also counteracting and interacting or controlling cycles. So for example, fire will burn the wood, right? And it will melt metal, right? So we can think of too much fire can drain our wood energy. And it can melt metal, which will give us lung problems. Now that's all real kind of complicated mother-son cycles, controlling cycles. We don't need to worry about that, but I want you to understand that conceptually, because in advanced face reading, when you start looking at the different facial characteristics, if you have someone who has a super strong water feature up here and almost no fire, right? Or they have almost a lot of woody features, those 2 elements are going to interact in a certain way, and you'll be able to create more complicated or more comprehensive trait stacking. We're not going there this time around. We're going to talk about the basic fire, water, fire, earth, metal, wood. These are the 5 basic elements that we're going to talk about. Each of those has an archetype, if you will, an archetype in terms of facial locations, but also an archetype in terms of the body structure that goes with that. Okay, so that's where we're going to start first. We're going to start as there's 5 basic elements, and it goes water, wood, the way Lillian taught me: water, wood, fire, earth, metal. And depending on which system of like Tibetan 5 elements is a little bit different than Japanese 5 elements. But it's not important for now. So I want to download all this stuff to you and still keep it simple. But it's again, this is one of the reasons why I didn't do that. All right, so let's look at the 5 basic elements and what we can do with that. All right, so I'm gonna switch over to my OneNote. And these particular pictures are actually from Lillian's book. I figure if I'm going to teach you what I learned, then I'm going to teach you from the person I learned it from, right? So this is a water element face, and you can see that it has a lot of roundness to it. It's got a very round. People with water faces tend to be have roundness to their forehead. You'll notice the eyes have a little bit more shadow around them, and they're actually quite deep set. People with a water physiognomy or a strong set of water characteristics tend to be very introspective. They tend to have a kind of a mysterious energy about them. They're more contemplative. They're more introspective. And the deeper set the eyes, the darker the set the eyes, the more of a mystery they tend to come across as. Now, people with who have a water physiognomy, people whose bones are very large and very heavy, these people tend to have wider hips. We mentioned the mysteriousness of the eyes, and there's a dark undertone to their skin. The color that goes to the water element is a dark blue, sometimes black or purple. And so these people will tend to have a little bit more darkness or shade around the eyes. Okay. Now, that can be a healthy darkness, or it can be a not so healthy darkness. For example, if somebody has going through a lot of adrenal fatigue, they're not sleeping well, both of which, by the way, are related to the kidney, which is an organ related to the water element, then this can have an almost bruised look to it. But usually the deeper the eye, the more of a pool they have here. And so you want to think waterways. Now, I don't know if you can see it very well on this forehead, but this person has a really interesting trait, and it could be a trick of the light or not. But if you notice, there's almost like a bony sphere here and a bony sphere here, and this has a little bit of a pool to it. So when you see some of these traits, the kidneys, the water element, all relate to the bone and the bone marrow, as well as the bladder and so forth. So anytime you see extra bone in and around the forehead, we say this person has extra jing. And if you notice that there's almost a little crevice or a little space between these two bony parts of the forehead, we say that this person has inherited talents and traits from their mother and their father that are sort of antagonistic to each other. In other words, maybe some person has real strong math ability and the other person is really good at macrame, like something like that. That's a different aspect of it. But when you see these big watery foreheads, this person has a lot of extra jing. The space here tends to lead to water people tend to be quite psychic often, and so their third eye can be a little bit more open. But let's look at the personality traits of this here. Okay, these people tend to be a little bit more reserved. They don't get angry really fast. That's what's interesting. So if you have someone who has a lot of water features, they tend, they say still waters run deep. These people tend to take a slower time to anger or to get pissed off. Now, when they finally do get angry, they're like a boiling kettle, but it takes a while to get there, right? Because of the influence of the water element, these people like to just kind of sit. Although they're often very, very good at business, they kind of like to be more introspective, contemplative. They don't like to move a whole lot, so they like to be at rest. Their favorite foods tend to be soupy. They love to sleep, and they really cherish their time alone and in the quiet. So if you're someone who has a water deficiency from a lifestyle perspective, if you were to take on some of these activities, just learning how to be at rest, be in more meditation, spend more time sleeping and not moving, these things are very nurturing and nourishing to the kidneys. Okay. These people tend to be more easygoing. Lifestyle wise, they tend to be more easygoing. As an employee, they tend to be more easygoing, calm, process oriented. They can be a bit persistent and stubborn. Okay. So if you're going to hire somebody, this would be a water person as an employee. Okay. But what are they like as a boss? Well, here's the thing to understand. When you've got someone who's got a lot of water, they're not necessarily going to be a super rule monger, but they want shit done right and they want the rules followed as best as possible. They like that people can get along without causing waves, so to speak. They tend to be easygoing and don't usually have strict deadlines, but they do value research, thorough research. And in Chinese five-element theory, we would say that water is the mother of water is metal. So in metal people, you will see a strong, and you'll see this when we get to the end, a strong regard for boundaries, rules, deadlines, and really just making sure protocols are followed. And when we talk about being sure, and what does this really mean? It means process. If there's an established process or guideline, these people are going to be super about that. And because metal is the mother of water, you can see that importance of process is still there. But these guys or gals are much more easygoing about it. If you can actually, if you don't follow a process and you have a really good rationale for why that process wasn't followed or why you did what you did, these people will probably let you get away with it, right? But you better have your ducks in a row, because they're going to ask, how did you come to that conclusion? Where's your research? Can you prove it to me? That kind of thing. Okay. So that's the water element. Any questions about the water element really, really quickly while we have you here? Anybody? Bueller? All right. Oh, nobody's answering. So you're either hurriedly jotting down notes or I've completely put you in trance. One of the two. So how to heal from our, how to use these skills during interviews. Okay. So from a hiring perspective, if I have somebody who is working in a very busy, fast-paced, chaotic, fluid environment, is a water person going to be my person of choice? And I'm open. Jack says trance. And I'm open to hearing your rationale again, because I want you to think about finding the right person, the right temperament for the job. If you tell us how we can take notes in the replay. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you want, again, I recommend that you pick up Lillian's book, because these are literally from her work. So, 1 second, let me just lower this a little bit. Okay, all right. So Willow says, what? Willow, did you have a question? Can water elements be dishonest? Anyone can be dishonest. This is not about character, and I think it's important to talk about that. When we talk about personality and temperament, when we talk about the 5 elements, whether you're using the modern approach to face reading or you're going with the classics, we can look at trauma history, we can look at lifestyle, we can look at constitution, We can look at potential athletic ability, sexual and romantic compatibility. We can look at the most likely personality and temperament a person is going to exhibit. But here's the thing, and Lillian could do this. I'm still working on it. But even I haven't seen enough. I haven't seen enough samples to know if there are any traits that really determine character. Because you can have someone who is very dominant, very assertive, who is a social justice warrior, or someone who is a mafia hitman. It's the same traits, but the character of the person is extremely different. And that's the thing I'm still looking for any indicators of that, but I haven't seen any yet. So personality, temperament, behavioral patterns, those we can see. Those we can see. But a person, how trustworthy a person is, how what direction their values lie, we can't really see that, if that makes any kind of sense. Aileen's asking water versus metal forehead. Well, let's go through the 5 elements and then I'll put them side by side so you can see them, because I don't want to mess up my presentation. But the water forehead is actually, I see a lot more in water people, just going from seminar to seminar. I see a much rounder head in most water people than the one that's shown here. This one has a little bit more metal in it. And you'll see that when we get to the metal picture, than I'm used to seeing in many water faces. But very strong water features, good ears, good eyes, nice rounding foreheads, right? These are what we call water features, right? And so what I'm doing is I'm giving you the big picture. I'm giving you the 5 elements. I'm giving you what these physiognomies are, and then I'll go back and I'll show you like the wood areas on the face, the water areas on the face, things of that nature. Okay, like I said, we'll cover these much more in depth and much more linearly in the April training. So let me go back to all right. Hold on. Okay, my Zoom is acting up in weird ways, which we kind of knew that would happen, but hey. Oh, there it is. No, that's not it either. Okay, just bear with me here, folks. There we go. Share screen. All right. So this is our water face. And once again, let's just go through this. Okay, we covered that. All right, so let's go to fire, our wood. Let's look at wood now. The wood face is a little different. Now, what's interesting about wood features is that it actually comes in 2 varieties. Wood people can be very, very tall, or they can be very short. So think of tall like a redwood tree or a pine tree, or short like a bush. So Terry is saying, so faces are not one of 5 types, but can be a combination of traits in unequal proportions. 100%, Terry. In fact, that is, in fact, the norm rather than the exception. When you start looking at somebody and you're trying to call them a water face or a wood face or a metal face, what you're looking at is the predominance of the traits and how prominent those traits are. So if somebody has a super round head, round forehead, deep set eyes, strong chin, those are all very long ears. Those are all water features. And you can see that this person has deep set eyes, the roundness of the head, the length of the ears, and the strength of the chin, right? These are all very strong very prominent water features. And because those predominate, we would say that they're a water face. Now, does that mean they have no metal on their face? Of course it doesn't. Does it mean they have no fire on their face? Of course it doesn't. These are just the things that, do they have no earth on their face? This person has amazingly earthy lips. They have very earthy cheekbone or cheeks, right? But that's not what you notice first, right? And so we would say this person has a strong water element affinity, right? But it doesn't mean that that's all they are, okay? The wood element, what's interesting about wood element people is that they almost always have an M-shaped hairline. Now, Lillian never taught me that, but every time I look at real strong wood people, I see an almost M shape. Even when they're losing their hair, they have an almost M shape or a widow's peak in their hairline, right? So don't quote me on that. That's just something I'm starting to observe more and more. Maybe because I'm sensitized to it. But woody people are like the natural warriors of the five elements. They're the achievement oriented go-getters. These people love to compete. They love to go for things. These people don't like to sit still. And like I said before, they come in two very interesting physiognomic differences. Some are very long and tall limbed. They tend to be very tendony, very ropey tendons. They tend to have a greenish undertone to their skin. So even people who are more olive skinned will be a little bit more on the woody side. Or they can be very, very bushy, like, you know, a short, stocky person with really, really curly or wavy nappy hair. These are all strong wood features, right? Liver people are doers. They love to be in nature. They love moving. They tend to like meditation, but they like moving meditation more than sitting meditation. They're all about right action, taking things on head on, and just getting things done. They're extremely focused people. Okay. As an employee, a wood element person can be very driven. They can be focused, they like action, intense. They're determined. As executives, they expect people to work like they do and to get things done on time. They do not mind having employees doing things over. In fact, they will make you do that shit over. So let me talk a little bit about the wood features of the face, and then we'll talk a little bit about a little bit more the dynamics of a wood personality. So wood features can be seen in the brow bone, in the eyebrow, in the jaw, okay? Sometimes in the eyes, but not a lot, okay? So when we look at somebody's primary wood features, we're looking at the strength of the brow bone, the eyebrow hairs themselves, the seat of the stamp, which is right here, the center of the eye, the jaw. I think that's the majority of the wood areas. Now, somebody who has a really strong, almost like a Frankenbrow, you've ever seen Frida Kahlo or Frankenstein, you have this really super strong brow. These are people who have extra bone in and around this area, which means they have more physical energy. They tend to be natural, very gifted athletes. They don't do well as part of a team many times, unless they're the ones in charge of it. Wood people like to be in charge. And they tend to have a very strong work ethic. The interesting thing about wood people is, and especially if they have this very big eyebrow area, wood people many times will work harder for free than they will when they're getting paid. Now, let me explain that. People with a real strong forehead, they love to be the hero. They like to be the knight in shining armor who rides in and saves the day. And so if you ever need someone to carry your bags up to your room, just pull the damsel or dude in distress look, and these people will generally just be happy to bail you out, right? So one of the things about the wood element is it's all achievement oriented. These people are the go-getters. They don't like to sit still. They don't like to be slowed down. And they are often better suited for either being in charge of the team or working in a self-directed capacity with minimal supervision. Depending on the spacing between their eyebrows, that drive to thrive and succeed and go forward can work very, very well in an organizational environment, or it can actually short circuit and cause chaos in it. But wood people are the doers. They will come in at, if your regular business hours are 9 p.m. to 6 p.m., right? These people will be in at 5, they'll leave at 12, and they'll want you to know that they were there from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. and wonder why you weren't there from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. That the thing about they have some similarities to metal people. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But like wood people want everyone around them to work like they do, but they want everybody to know how hard they're working. So they have the ego walls. They have all their trophies, all their certificates, where they can be seen. Right? They're proud of their gold medals and all that stuff, right? But usually very, very, they're very, very achievement oriented. The metal person, we'll talk more about this when we get to the metal tier. The metal person will work just as hard, just as long as the wood person, but no one will ever know they were there. Because they'll come in, they'll go to wherever their office or wherever their workspace is, and they'll work until they leave. And no one will ever know because they want to get things finished. They want things done exactly the right way. And one of the big contrasts I make between wood people and metal people is that wood people get things done. Both elements are very focused, but they're different in how they go about it. Wood element people are like, I don't know if you can, I'm going to change my angle. I don't know if you can see the table I'm working on. Hold on a second. I'm going to make this bigger. Okay, so you can see all the stuff on my table, right? So if you tell a wood person to clean up the table or organize the table, they'll go, okay. Right? And they'll put this off to the side and they'll look and they'll say, okay, organized. A metal person, you tell them to organize the table and it'll be and if you're getting impatient, you know what it's like to be working with a metal person. Oops, I got to do it all over again. Right? You get the idea? Metal people don't get things done. Metal people get things finished. Hold on a second. Make sure I'm sitting. Does that make sense? So a lot of metal people are all about orderliness. They're all about aesthetic. This is the other thing about metal people versus wood people. Metal people are very, very sensitive, extremely sensitive to their environment. And this is actually where I think maybe I hesitate to say this, where I think Lillian might have got some things a little, well, maybe I got them wrong, but metal people tend to be extremely sensitive to energetics, to spirituality, and they're in tune with beauty. And so metal people need a beautiful, pretty, orderly environment, right? And they tend to sometimes feel physical discomfort when the environment is not well organized and orderly. Whereas wood people, good enough is good enough, right? And if there's something wrong, they're going to yell and scream and piss and moan about it, and then they're going to fix it, and it'll be good enough, and they'll move on. Okay. So you understand the distinction. Both are very, very driven. They're very, very achievement oriented, but the metal person takes it one step further, from finished to refined to complete, right? A log cabin versus a royal dinner party. Okay, that's an interesting juxtaposition, but okay. So Melody is raising her hand. Go ahead and just type your questions, and I will do my best to. Could I show the traits of wood again? You mean on the PowerPoint? Hold on a second. Okay. So woody people will tend to have their features are a lot more rugged, a lot rougher. They kind of look like wood. That's what's interesting. They kind of have a woody kind of a, even though this person is not ugly by any stretch of the imagination, but can you see how very knurled the skin kind of, and the structures kind of look? There's a bit of a swarthiness and a roughness to the features, right? And what you'll see when we get to the wood, the metal face, how different that is, right? Fire people drive metal and wood people absolutely nuts, absolutely nuts. And the primary reason is that fire people are very dopaminergic. What do I mean by that? They're always in motion, but their motion a lot of times from a woody perspective. Now, woody people are motion oriented too, but compared to a fire person, a wood person's movement, their direction, their focus is very, very clear. It's very defined. It's not random. Whereas fire people to somebody like a metal person or a wood person can seem almost just chaos incarnate. The way Lillian would explain it to me, these people are, by the way, they're not stupid. They are deeply creative. They're always in motion. One of the things Lillian would tell me was that you could always tell a fire person's home when you walked in, because you could follow the line of clothes from the doorway to the bedroom, because as they're walking in, they're taking off everything and just throwing it to the wind. They don't like clothes. They like to wear minimal stuff. It's interesting, but their feet, they tend to be a little bit smaller in stature. I think of them like little fire elves, because their features are very, very pointy, right? And so when you look at this picture, you can see they have a very diamond-like face. You see the diamond shape, right? This is kind of a pointy thing, right? Their features are very small, but very pointy. And that's one of the things when we look at the face, the fire element resides in the points and the tips. So when we look at fire elements, we're looking at the inner canthus, the outer canthus, the tip of the nose, the tips of the mouth. All of these will tell us the strength of the fire element. But these people are they tend to be very creative, first and foremost, but they love new things. So if these people are, they never want to go to this, they tend to never want to go to the same place twice. And if they do, like for a restaurant or something, they'll order something different every time. So they tend to be smaller. They have narrower shoulders, slimmer hips, active hands. Their skin colors tend to be reddish and pinkish, especially in the throat area. They're prone to freckles, but they're a bit smaller in stature. They like to play. That's the one thing that you can say about fire people in general, is they just love to play. Everything is about fun. So on a more personality profiling, these people are more dopaminergic. I think the other term is cholinergic. We'll just leave it with dopaminergic. They tend to be live for today, jump out of airplanes, do all kinds of crazy stuff, and they don't tend to hold on to emotions very long. But because they're so fiery, because their emotions are so, they happen and they come and go so quick. They show a lot of emotion on their face. One of the things that tends to happen with very fiery people is they tend to acquire a lot of wrinkles faster. That was something Lillian taught me, was that because of the amount of emotions they're processing and going through, and how the speed at which they live life, they tend to wrinkle up a bit more. Okay, but you could power a city off of them. They're just always going. Okay. There may be some correlation, but not enough to be useful in my world, Sue. So fire element, these people at work are consummate multitaskers, right? These people will have three people on two different, two people on two different phone lines, working on on their computer, holding a baby in their arms while nursing them, all at the same time. But they, to the average outside, they look super chaotic, right? So these people are not going to do well in very slow-paced, methodical, process-driven ways of doing things. These people are going to do well in something like a call center or a high-paced customer service place. They might even be good salespeople if there's a lot of cold calling or a lot of interactiveness going on. Okay. As an executive, these people need to support their innovative ideas and need people to support their innovative ideas and finish things for them. They love the creative process, but they hate the management part. So as you can probably guess, these people are often great as part of a think tank. They're part of a brainstorming process. You might think on the surface that they'd make great entrepreneurs, right? And some of them might. Like certainly a guy like Russell Brunson has a lot of fire traits, but he also has a lot of wood to him, right? So the problem with people who are really, really fiery is they're not detail oriented. They'll start a project and leave somebody else to finish it or somebody else to manage it. So you may wind up, if you have someone who's a fire person and they're leading the charge or they're running you may wind up picking up a lot of slack or getting a lot of stuff delegated to you because the fire person just doesn't want to be bothered once they've come up with the idea. Okay. So again, as our brain exercise, if we were hiring for a librarian position, what elemental archetype would we want? Type it in the chat. What elemental type would we want? Water? Metal? Anybody else? Metal? Anybody else? Come on, guys. I know there's more of you out there. KW, okay, you're right. In my opinion, metallic people are great. They're great auditors. They're great quality control people. They're if there's a process or a set of rules and boundaries that need to be strictly maintained, if things need to be not just done but aesthetically refined and finished, someone with strong metal qualities is going to be your best choice. But let's change the context a little bit. Let's say, for example, that you are a strong metal person. You have a lot of metallic traits. What's going to be the best match for you of the energies we've talked about so far? Who's likely to be the best match? Water? Okay. Anybody else? Lacey says water. Rob says wood. Wood. Okay. Okay. So just so I know, some of you said, I'm curious, why wood? I'm not saying you're right, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but why wood? What's your rationale for that? Liam, you're not wrong, right? And I'll show you how to kind of balance these equations once I get some feedback from people. They would be a good support system, absolutely. A water person. Remember that water is the mother of, or metal is the mother of water. So a metal provider could allow somebody to be more nurturing. What we have found on a matchmaking level, is that the more traits a person has in common, the more compatible they tend to be. So ironically, the best type based on that particular approach would be a metal person for a metal person. The other way we can look at it is complementary. So in other words, if I've got someone who's very metallic, who's very, very rigid and set in what they want, is there any kind of a complementary energy or emotion that would buffer that, right? And actually the water element would be a really good way of doing that, right? Wood and metal people, they could get along, except where the details come up. I know I can tell you this because I am in a relationship that's a metal wood relationship, and a lot of times we line up, but a lot of times we don't, and we just butt heads on having, like, I'll think something's done, and she says, "No, you still haven't done this, and this," right? So the thing you have to look at is how tolerant of a metal person's detail orientedness will that person be. And so fiery people would drive a metal person crazy because fire melts metal, all right, depending on the strength of the element in the person. But someone who's very fiery would just run a metal person ragged, or vice versa, right? Somebody who's very woody could tolerate fiery people for a certain length of time, but the erraticness of, if this is the scope of everything a fire person's into or interested in, and a wood person's here, then within this level they can get along. But they're going to be exhausted once you get outside the wood person's parameters. So wood people are much more focused and directed in their energy. Fiery people are just all over the place, right? Their energy is right, left, up, down, backwards, forwards. It's much, much broader than what a wood person's energetics would indicate or be tolerable. So does that make sense? Right. So let's look at the last one or last two on the list, really, which is Earth. Earth is fun. Earth people are awesome. Reminds me of that song "Earth Girls Are Easy," or that movie "Earth Girls Are Easy." Earth people are like the nurturers of the world. You would think a water person is like the most nurturing. They're not, actually. Water people can be extremely nurturing, but it's the earth people that are always trying to feed you. And as you can see, earth people tend to be very fleshy. They're also very muscular. Okay. The muscular system is related to the earth element. So these people will tend to be very, very strong. Okay. And the organs related to the earth element are the stomach and the pancreas. And these people are all about nurturing, self-care, connection, create comfort. Earth people tend towards being plump, but there's a difference. They have large muscles. Most of the weight tends to center around the abdomen. They tend to have large feet and usually have pretty good skin. Now, one of the things, especially if you do a lot of trauma work, that you'll see with people who are overweight is what we call false earth. And false earth is that cottage cheesy looking flabby, hanging off of kind of skin. We call this false earth because what that is actually body armor. It's people whose natural physiognomy is not plumpness. They've just piled on the weight and it's not healthy for them. And so we call that false earth. So the cottage cheese, the cellulite, that kind of stuff. We call that false earth. People who are naturally plump, who have a healthy peaches and cream glow to their skin, there's usually a really, really healthy muscle tone and a color emanating from beneath the skin. They kind of have a glow. And Lillian would say that earth people oftentimes, they smell like cookies or fresh bread. And these people are the nurturers of the world. Now, contrast these people. Earth people are collectors, right? And they're not like an earth person would actually drive a metal person a little crazy. And I'll explain that to you. You go to an earth person's house, right? And you will see piles of stuff everywhere. Now, I know you're thinking hoarder, and that's a pathogenic extreme of an imbalance in the earth element. But what you'll see in an earth person's house is collections of stuff everywhere. Collections. They love to accumulate things, right? And you can always tell an earth person's chair because when they sit in that chair, everything they could possibly want or need is within arm's reach. And it's a big deal when an earth person lets you sit in their chair, right? So Edie says, that's me. Yes. Right? So earth people do not go. Here's the thing about earth people. And this is what I was taught. So take this in the spirit in which it's intended. Earth people don't go to work to go to work. They're not like metal people. They're not like wood people who go because that's what we do, right? Work, baby, work. That's a very different reason for going, right? That's achievement. If you go and you visit like an earth person's office or their cubicle at work and you look at their desk, what you're going to see are pictures and memorabilia related to their family. Earth people are the nurturers of the world. They don't go to work for a plaque. They don't go to work for a title. The reason they go to work is sitting on their desk. So these people will be as steady and consistent as you can imagine, but they're not going to be there because that's just what, because for the glory of the company. They're there because of the nurturing and the sustenance that paycheck and that job allows them to do for the people they love. Does that make sense? And earth people are going to feed you. They're going to hug you. They're very nurturing, very solid people. They don't do change very well many times. The more earthy a person is, the more traditional they tend to be, the more conservative they tend to be. Your less conservative people will tend to be more watery or more fiery. Again, there's no one's one element, right? You have a balance of elements. How do you know your element? Well, Lillian would have this little 5-element quiz that she would give people. Okay, if you can probably go find apps that I'll give you a whole bunch of questions and tell you what your element is. All right, so let's go through some of the characteristics I've prepared for you, and then we'll keep going. Is this helpful? Is this useful? Okay. So again, so people who are very earthy or who have earth issues will tend to, the spleen, the stomach, and the pancreas are the primary elements related to the earth element. And it's all about nurturing, self-care, connection, creation. Richard says it sounds like the Greek templates. Yes. In fact, in one of my other classes, Richard, I actually have a chart that shows you how the Chinese 5-element system relates to the Greek 4 elements, and they're more alike than they aren't. The only place that there's a little bit of finagling is between wood and earth, or wood and metal. Okay. Like I said, this is the tip of a very large iceberg. This is just really broad strokes, but I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what I had to sort through, and to give you the things that I give you in the other trainings. So Earth people, this is one, they're consistent, they're reliable, they're team players, they're super, super cooperative. So if you're going to build a team, one that's willing to be led, to be guided, that you can count on, make sure these people have lots of Earth. But as you can probably see, they may not be the most innovative, right? And so you have to find that balance, right? Earth executives tend to be kind. They care for their employees. They tend to inspire loyalty. I would say that Earth bosses tend to inspire more loyalty than any other executive I've seen, although sometimes that their kindness can be taken advantage of. They want people to stay long term, right? They're all about relationships, right? They don't want things to be like fly by night, quick and dirty. They want things done right. They want people to feel good about things. They want people to feel like they're part of something, right? The Earth element is all about consolidation and connection. So they're the ones that are most likely to give people personal time off, right? And then finally, we've talked a lot, we've compared a lot of these charts to the metal element. And this is a classic metal face. Now, one of the things you can tell about metal faces, look how refined the features are. The nose is very aquiline, right? The cheeks are very defined. But even more importantly, look how much space is between the features. The metal element is all about boundaries. It's all about space. And so when you look at a metal face, you will see lots of the features are further apart than on someone like a wood person or an earth person or a metal person. And it will have a very refined, very elegant appearance to it. The funny thing about metal people is even when they're wearing sweats, they look well dressed. They look like they're well put together because they're all about aesthetics. They feel aesthetic environments very, very physically. And so they don't necessarily fix things up or tidy things up because they're neat freaks. They tidy things up because the lack of order in the environment makes them feel bad. It gives them an icky, yucky feeling. And so they feel the need to actually straighten things up and clean up. Right? So let's look at some of these traits. So metal people, they tend to be small bone, very pale skin. Okay. I've never seen a swarthy looking metal person. Even my teacher, Kevin Secor, who's a high combination of metal and wood, very pale skin, very pale skin. Their features tend to be extremely symmetrical. This is another aspect of the wood element, is that the features tend to be remarkably refined and symmetrical, right? The hair tends to be very fine. The shoulders will be broad. And what this was supposed to be was they will tend to have broad shoulders and narrow waists, right? So they have a much more of a V shape to them, but there's a little bit more angular. They're not quite as V-shaped or as angular as a metal person, but they'll be more refined in their look. Okay. A person is these people have high aspirations. They tend to be more calm. They're all about creating order, beauty, boundaries. If there was one word that I would assign to the metallic element, it's boundaries. They're big on boundaries. Now, wood people are big on boundaries too, but they're not nearly in many cases as rigid on boundaries as metal people are. Okay. So metal executives or metal employees especially can tend to be very, very particular. They tend towards the perfectionistic side. They are self-starters, just like the wood element, right? They tend to be very independent and they're very efficient in how they do things. Now, sometimes what they think of as efficient, we would drive a wood person crazy, because to them, getting something finished is more important than getting it done. So good enough is never good enough for most metal people, okay? Melissa, it's just a question. Maybe this comes from people who they don't know who they are, but I am into health, so this is nothing we should do. So this is nothing we should do to change a person, just accept them. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the most important lessons that I learned from Lillian was that every person is beautiful. Every person's spirit. First of all, the face you see is not who they are. Who they are is a soul. And every face is beautiful because it was created by God. It was created by nature. And so Lillian was one of the most accepting, loving, and benevolent forces I've ever met. And when she would read somebody, she would always, always, always find a way to bring up some of the most painful things in a loving way. In fact, when she would do a face reading and she knew she had to tell somebody something that was less than positive, which, by the way, is most original Chinese face reading, it skews very negative. She would find ways to tell people things that didn't make them feel like they were a failure because they had a particular trait. So she was one of the most loving, forgiving, and open people I'd ever met. Now, I'm a change worker, right? I'm an influence teacher. And so my approach is, I still have that. When I look at somebody's face, I'm not, unless I'm paid to change them or to help them change by their definitions and by their desires, I don't try to change them. But I will manage their influence in my environment and my outcomes. So I give people the freedom to be whoever they're going to be, but I know more of who they are from their face and the patterns that come from that than their best friends know many times. And depending on the context in which you're doing face reading, you don't necessarily need to change anybody either, right? Your job is to read what's in front of you and then decide what you want to do about it in terms of how the level of access you want to give this person to your life, the amount of trust or job responsibilities you want to give them, those kinds of things, right? So what's the question here? Why asking health? We should wear sunblock to prevent skin cancer. So someone wants to sell health. It's not their fault. People don't know who they, okay. The questions are getting a little bit chaotic, so I'm not sure exactly what that means. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remind you that the clock is running on tonight's webinar. So for those of you who are want to learn more about the practical aspects of face reading versus the more energetic Chinese systems I was taught. Let me just put this up here for you really quick, because apparently my PowerPoint got closed and I need to find it again. I'm not even going to bother let's not do that. And for some reason, these so for those of you who are interested in learning more about the face reading and stuff like that, and by the way, the information that I was reading for you, a lot of it can be found in Lillian's book, but a lot of it is found in her business face-to-face, which is training for people who are going to use face reading in business. So once again, for those of you who are on the fence, you've got the Defense Against the Face Reading for Fun and Profits home study course. It's a $1,997 value. You're going to get the Defense Against the Stark Arts home study course valued at $1,997 value. We're going to give you that to you free. You're going to get the Real World Hypnosis Identity by Design home study course valued at $1,497 value, absolutely free. You're going to get people reading for fun and profit, home study course, $1,497 value. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. You're going to get the 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program and a 13-year video archive valued at $1,997 value. You're going to get face reading for fun and profit level 2 home study course valued at $1,997. Once again, we're going to give it to you free, and you're going to get that VIP super ticket to the 5-element face reading for fun and profit 3-day home study live training, April 26th to the 28th, San Diego. And of course, April 12th, 13th, and 14th, you'll get that VIP ticket to the live virtual healing intensive. It's a $1,497 value. Total package is $15,629. You can get it all for one low installment of just $997, or if you need to, you can break that up into 3 installments of $397 each. Just click this link, www.nlppower.com/face, and we'll get you going. You can reach out to Moss or Mia either at email or by phone, and we'll go ahead and do our best to get you guys set up in the most effective way possible. So Zekison is asking, what's the identity to have in face reading? Okay, so Zekison-san, I don't understand that question. So if you can please elaborate on it, I'm happy to do that for you. All right, so where's my, oops, I got to do this again. I'm playing dueling windows here. Okay. All right, so that we've covered water, we've covered fire, wood, we've covered fire, earth, and of course metal. Can you show the face and descriptions all again, please? Yes, I don't know if you're going to be able to get a big enough screenshot to cover all of it, but I'll see what I can do here. Go ahead and move that one, or move this. There you go. So you have water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. Now there's a whole lot more to each of these traits, and I'm going to be covering those April 26th, 27th, and 28th. There's certain body parts, certain types of diseases that certain categories are prone to. But I thought, how can I give you guys a good introduction to Chinese 5 elements and how these different personality patterns relate to each other, and still keep it somewhat practical. So I went to Lillian's information on business and relationship matchmaking, and I pulled some basic information out so you could see how the 5 elements relate to each other. I have found many correlations between the Chinese 5-element system and the Greek system, as was mentioned earlier. There's also a huge correlation between the temperaments in the Fisher temperament sorter, which are based on hormonal pathways. So like I said, I've done a lot of background research into this. It's not like phrenology where you're going to feel the bumps on a person's head or anything like that. I have tested the vast majority of everything I'm teaching you. In fact, I only teach things I've tested. And this stuff has borne itself out, not just from me, but literally the hundreds of people I've trained to be face readers. And your faces will change right in front of you when you start learning to unpack and attack these things. So what I meant about sunblock in American things are sold to people as an opportunity, but it's the responsibility of a person that wants to sell something to someone. It's the responsibility of a person who is earthy to know who they are. Well, I think it's ultimately, I think, to your question, I think it's all of our responsibility to know who we are. But here's the thing about that. Most of us have no clue who we are. Right? If you look at the spiritual implications of the traditional Chinese 5-element system, and there is a deep well of spirituality involved here is that you are not your face. Your face changes as your life changes. Your face changes as your emotional constitution changes. Your face changes as your values change. That's what's fascinating about the face reading, is your face is not static. And if you get Lillian's book, which I highly recommend you do, there's a section right in the front of her book, right? And shows people who got their pictures of them as newlyweds, and then pictures of them 30, 40, 50 years later. And they look almost like brother and sister as opposed to two people who just got married. And it's because of this constant vibrational interplay between life, our spirits, our emotional makeup, our values, and the resonance that's created. If you start learning how to do this, and you start unpacking people's features, you start, like somebody has a big wrinkle right here, it's a lost love line, and you guide them through a process of resolution, and they get that back, that line will fade right in front of you, or within a day or two, that line will start to go away. You'll see scars start to fade. They won't always go away 100%, but you'll see them start to change. You'll literally see people's features get bigger, smaller, more robust. What Lillian would do is she would have us take before and after pictures on day 5 of the training. Like we would have a picture of something. She would just bring random people in off the street. We'd take a picture. We'd go do the face reading. We'd take another picture. Same lighting, same wall. The only difference is you couldn't get them to stop smiling after the reading. And after everybody would leave, she'd put them up on the screen side by side, and they were different faces. It was crazy. And it was one of the first things I called bullshit on. But when I watched it happen in a hypnotherapy session, I was like, holy shit. This is real. I mean, it happened when I was just doing regular face readings. But the one time I remember, I was doing it on a Zoom call. I probably have the video somewhere. I can't show it because of HIPAA. But the lady had a completely flat brow bone, and I had almost no awareness of her eyebrows. 60 minutes into the session, she has a Frankenbrow, and I'm like, where did that come from? It just popped out, right? So but going back to this whole identity thing. Every human being on the planet is here to self-actualize. In Taoist spirituality and practices, we have this concept called Ming, or golden path, or destiny. You might think of it as the spiritual mission you came here to fulfill. And so one of the things in face reading that we're trying to do as face readers is we're trying to get back to our original face. Now, our original face is a code word for our soul, the pure being of light that we are before we take on a body. And the Chinese face reading says that you are never closer to your original face than when you're born. And they say that by the time you hit age 50, you've got the face you deserve, right? Right. And so the idea is you can look at a person, and in our Golden Path workshops, we will actually look at pictures of you through your entire life. We will inventory every job you've ever had, everything you've ever loved to do or felt passionate about. And we'll use that to create a life path for you that is the most likely trajectory for your life to go that leads you to the greatest sense of fulfillment. It's not about a job. It's about finding your golden path. It's about recovering the spiritual mission you had as a being of light, so that as you take on the right jobs and the right activities, you become more of who you were meant to be. You bring more light into your body, you bring more light into the world, and everything gets better. And what happens is when you get on that golden path, you start to look younger, you start to recover from very, very significant health problems. Everything gets better because you're on track. You're doing what you came here to do, right? And that's a lot of what we try to do at whatever level of face reading that we're working with, right? But you as a face reader, your job, your identity, or who you are to that person changes as context changes. If somebody's just coming to you for a face reading, you're a diagnostician. You're a guide telling you these are the things that your face is showing me. This is what this often means. What do you want to do about it? And you leave that decision up to them, and you recommend people that can help them facilitate that path. If you're someone who's like an all-in-one, like I have multiple healing modalities under my belt. I have tons of influence training, right? And I'm a face reader. The person, the identity I step into changes as the context changes. What is the outcome of the interaction that I'm with? But I'm also on the same path as all my students and my clients are. I'm working towards becoming a better version of David, which is why you can keep coming back, because I'll never be done. I'll always have something cool to share because I'm still looking. I'm still evolving. And you're all on that path. I'll give you guys a real quick trick. Take your finger and touch the tip of your nose and just rub it a little bit. And if you feel a little indentation, you have what Lillian would call a human angel marking. And you are people who are compelled by something inside of you to want to help other people, to relieve as much suffering as humanly possible, right? And that's why you found your way here, for whatever reason, right? So if you want to continue on that journey, I'm here to help. All you got to do is click that link. It's going on 6:25, and I need to close it down. But if for those of you who want to continue this journey, we have a whole lot more behind the face reading than we have time to share. And I sincerely hope you guys had a good time with it. I hope you will continue to practice and share and go out into the world and make everybody's lives better. One last time, last call, as they say in that's not what I want. In the movies. Once again, for those of you who want to do this, this is the Secrets of Personality Face Reading Home Study course. It's going to come with Defense Against the Dark Arts, the Identity by Design Home Study course, the People Reading for Fun and Profit Home Study course, the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2, the VIP Super Ticket, 5-element Face Reading for Fun and Profit, April 26th to the 28th, and of course, the 3-day virtual healing intensive, April 12th, 13th, and 14th, online only. The total package is $15,629. All you got to do is click that link right now, nlppower.com/FACE. Click the link. Don't wait anymore. You got 60 days to test it and see if I'm full of shit or not. And if at the end of 59 days you think I'm full of it, just pick up the phone and we'll give you a full refund. Otherwise, grab your links, grab your courses, come to the trainings, and let's make the world a better place, starting with you. Okay? You guys are amazing. I love you all. If you need help with that, we can break that into 3 easy installments, just $397. Be sure to watch for the replay. Type your questions in the comment section below the replay. I love you all. I will see you on the other side. Good night, and God bless. Take care.